Los Angeles this weekend covering the unlawful assembly. And rather than just showing you riot clips, we got a lot of information for you about really what's going on in the undermining of peace in our country, who's organizing this chaos, and who's really involved in this new uprising against the Trump regime. Plus, it's crazy. I'm just getting reports right now that there is unrest in the Middle East. Oh, shoot. Nobody knew about that one. That's actually crazy. I'm finding out there's this country called Israel and Iran, and apparently Iran's different than Iraq. Who knew? And there's problems there. So we're going to be talking about that as Tel Aviv is currently under siege and on fire. Additionally, we also have some news stories that they haven't talked to you about, and we'll be covering the breakdown of the Trump administration and rebuttaling Steven Crowder's comments that actually the entire base supports Trump invading Iran. We're talking about this story and so much more here on another episode of The Rift, Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Sorry about last night, guys. I got stuck in Los Angeles because of the civil unrest. We got curfewed and sort of kept in downtown, so we were late and unable to get back here. But anyways, we have a great show for you today. I'm super excited with my guests. Fully packed studio, a great lineup. Let's start the show. My name's Elijah Schaefer, and I am your host tonight. We have a great show. I'm really excited. Everybody who's here in the studio is joining me from all over the country. I just wanted to bring up this picture. What a great weekend in Los Angeles. We had our friends show up. Los Angeles Jewish activists organized in support of illegal immigration in the USA. Jews against deportations. Let's get a little round of applause for our Jewish brothers and sisters just doing the Lord's work and ensuring that our country has as many non-white people as possible. It's a really great thing. Thank you for that. As they say, Shabbat Shalom, my brother. Shabbat Shalom. I just felt like doing a bris while I was there. It just was a great time. Joining me today in the studio, I'd like to welcome my guests today. They'll introduce themselves. Welcome to The Rift. Tell us who you are.
Hi, I'm Anna Perez. I'm a writer and commentator. I used to host a show called Wrong Think. Many of you might know. And I've been on Elijah's show a few times back when it was slightly offensive, or nightly offensive, rather. So really happy to be here. My debut back on camera.
Well, I'm happy. You and I actually worked at Blaze TV together.
Yeah.
You were even there before Blaze TV was Blaze TV. You were at CRTV.
Right. So that's where we met. So we've known each other for years, actually. But yeah, I mean, the thing about media is it's just changing so much. So it's really good that you're starting something like this and kind of going in the opposite direction of some of the more conning outlets.
Yeah, who would have known that you, John Miller, and myself would still be in media, but would all kind of be feeling the same ick when it comes to all the other brands. It's like, ugh, you know what I mean? You just know they're lying to you, and then you're like, could it get worse? And then you read something Mark Levin wrote, and you go, ooh.
Yeah, and the thing is, back then there weren't a lot of options because it was basically like Blaze TV, Fox, and those were kind of the standard networks, Daily Wire, of course. But I think as people started to hear the truth about, who really controls media and such, people started to wake up and say, hey, we want more options. We want, there's a bigger demand for it. And of course, the rise of right-wing Twitter. That was a big catalyst, I would say, and like people just turning away from those more traditional outlets, if you will.
Absolutely. And of course, joining me as well back here is our, he's not really a contributor, kind of is by now. Go ahead and tell us who you are.
Well, Shabbat Shalom to you too.
Shabbat Shalom, my friend. You ready to start that bris now?
Yeah, exactly. I'm so ready. Braeden Sorbo, actor, author of Embrace Masculinity, Lifting Men Up in a World That Pushes Them Down, and sort of Rift contributor here, like you said.
It's good. Also, can you just make sure also double check text Peter again too? I know we got a reply from them. Let's make that. And of course, joining me is one of our contributors and producers here at rifttv.com. You all know Michael Hennessy, but you can tell him who you are still.
Michael Hennessy. I run a page called Snowflake News. Also work here on the Rift. Assistant producer and help on the show as well. And just happy we survived the mayhem. It was an interesting weekend.
Yeah, it was. So, You know, what's kind of crazy here is these riots have happened across the country. This is week 2, right? So we're in week 2 of civil unrest around the country. And there's a lot of parallels on what we saw in the BLM riots. One of the reasons why we decided to go back out and cover this stuff, it is expensive, right? So you've got to have a justification. I mean, just to go out, you're spending at least $3 or $4 grand bringing a team out there covering this stuff. And that's not including the fact whether you decide to go to the most expensive bar in the entire city. Thank you, Kaylin Delmeda, because everything else was closed due to the curfew, and we didn't know that the drinks were $50. So that was a really bad idea. But,
oh boy.
Yeah, literally. Basically, the United States government, Central Intelligence, the FBI came out under the Department of Justice and released this saying, hey, look, all of this unrest is maybe not as organic as you think. It's like the organic at the store, but then you find out that the container's organic, but there's added sugar and all this weird stuff inside. Things are not necessarily organic. Listen to this. Department of Justice is launching an investigation, and we know who's behind this, actually. We'll talk about it. Listen.
Hello, I'm Bill Asaley, United States Attorney for the Central District of California.
And I'm Akil Davis, the Assistant Director in charge of the FBI's Los Angeles Field Office.
And I'm Tyler Hatcher, the Special Agent in charge of IRS Criminal Investigation here in Los Angeles.
The right to assemble and protest peacefully is protected by law. Unfortunately, we have seen individuals whose intentions are to cause damage and to assault law enforcement. For example, last week we arrested an individual who was charged with conspiracy to commit and aiding and abetting civil disorders. These violent agitators put peaceful demonstrators at risk.
The FBI and our federal partners will continue to investigate individuals and organizations who are knowingly funding or committing acts of violence against law enforcement, as well as the destruction of property.
We are currently tracing money to determine who is providing funding for these riots. Funding crime doesn't just affect the criminals, it also disrupts entire communities. Each dollar funneled into illegal operations fuels violence, undermines law and order, and perpetuates fear. Make no mistake, we will identify and disrupt financial networks supporting these criminal activities.
Think before you act. The legal consequences for financing or aiding and abetting these crimes are harsh. They include imprisonment and fines.
If you have any information regarding individuals and/or organizations providing financial support to commit acts of violence or destruction of property, please dial 1-800-CALL-FBI or visit tips.fbi.gov.
All right, so let me actually break this down. We have a lot of riot footage to cover, and crazy things happen. People got ran over by vehicles, probably rightfully so. A lot of people got shot. Some insane stuff. We have some very graphic images to share as well. Some people that were around me who got a femoral artery busted open. Not a good thing to happen. But the FBI's come out and said straight up, hey, look, we want to let you know this is not organic. And I think that's really important. I'm not a big fan of the DOJ, not a big fan of the FBI right now, but I do think that at least from BLM, everybody has come to realize, right? Remember when we were finding out later, you and I worked at Blaze during the BLM stuff. You were in the DC bureau. You remember what was going on. You were talking about the fact it was always coming back, beaten up or something. That's thanks to multiculturalism mostly. But what we were finding out is as we were going, wait a second, BLM leaders are trained communists? What did that mean? And we found out there was all these Antifa training networks inside of libraries across Seattle, and then it traces back to the 70s, and you started seeing that there was this entire insurgency. I think Americans didn't know that we had a left-wing insurgency of radical socialists and communists that were always using lies and manipulative tactics with the media, by the way, because it turns out, as Fox pointed out, that the mainstream media used the phrase peaceful protest 211 times just on Saturday while the violence was going on. 211 times they call them peaceful. I think we're going to find out. I'm going to tell you who's behind it, but I think we know for a fact that this No Kings protest, this unrest, it was planned, it is deliberate, and it is meant to destabilize our country, cause chaos, and I believe partially distract people from what's going on in the Middle East. I don't know if you see that, but I see the parallels. It's like we're back. We time traveled back again.
No, I think that's absolutely true. I think that if you look at a lot of the protests that are going on, well, first of all, it's when something's organized because people have nice signs, they're dressed a certain way, and it's a lot more coordinated than just a messy group of far leftists. Because, we know how the far left operates. They're not exactly the most put together group of individuals. So, you can kind of tell when something is very clearly organized. But I was going to say the same thing. It's very peculiar, the timing of all of this. And I would say that it's meant to distract. And as far as the people behind it, what their motive is exactly, well, look at who's in charge of the unrest in the Middle East. You know, who is causing a lot of this? Well, of course, we had Israel, who just started striking Iran the other day, and obviously we're now experiencing the fallout of that, and the United States getting involved in that potentially. They kind of already are. A lot of people are saying, oh, well, they haven't gotten involved yet. No, we absolutely have. We've assisted Israel in many, many ways in terms of their military power, and it's kind of demoralizing for the Trump base too, because it's like, we know Trump is not really deporting as many people as they tell us that they are. So what are they even protesting? You know, and so at that point, you know, it's like, we're not who you say we are, or who Trump is. We wish he was. We wish he gave them a reason to protest, but they don't really have a reason to, because they're not really deporting as many people as the media says they are. So what in the world's going on here? Obviously, it's planned.
Well, look at this real fast. I want to go to you, Braeden, in a second, but I want to say the DNI chief, you know, Tulsi Gabbard, literally said they have the receipts. They know who's behind this. And I want to play this clip, but the truth is that it was orchestrated by a billionaire family, primarily by the Walton family who own Walmart. This is all being orchestrated by the people who own Walmart. We have the receipts. Everybody knows this by now. It's well understood on the ground. This stuff is and it's also the CRS, right? The civil rights, you have the civil rights group from the United States government. It's part of our Department of Justice, I believe, who's actually working on this. But listen to this.
The bottom line is they don't care about the American people. They don't even care about the people that they're claiming to protest for. So many of them are paid protesters. This thing is being orchestrated, obviously, in many ways. And ultimately, President Trump is the one who took action to keep the American people safe and try to bring peace back to the streets that these rioters are destroying. The bottom line is...
So she had the receipts. She talks about it. She breaks it down. I'm just going to say this. The Walton family was mad because they were able to, as we found out, there is a loophole with the verification ID system, Verify, in the United States, the E-Verify system, because what was happening is during these raids, including at a food plant, everybody had been verified. They did over 200 arrests at one food processing plant, and the owner didn't get in trouble legally because they'd all shown E-Verify. They'd all proven that they were legally allowed to work in the United States. But there's this entire corrupt system of the way that they're getting around this. And it turns out that a lot of Walmart workers, we've talked about how much I freaking hate Walmart. You know, it's cheap crap from China, bad working conditions. They run everybody else out of business in the area, especially in small towns. It's a monopoly. They take over the competition, and then they tell you, look, your only other option is us or what? Or Target, if you live in a nicer area. Your only option is big box stores. During COVID, what didn't shut down? The big box stores. All the little guys had to shut down. They all had to lay off their workers. It's all part of this coordinated corporatism, and everyone's focused on Israel and the military-industrial complex, which is very real, and we'll talk about later in the show. But it's also important to realize that, like, yeah, behind these closed doors, when you can't hire illegals and abuse your workers, this is feudalism. This is peasantism. Like, they're super upset that they're going to maybe have to hire real Americans to work these jobs because why? They want their hundreds of billions of dollars of profit over the last decades. They want to continue to rape Americans of our money, gut the middle class, and they want to get back at Trump. So they'll fund this. Literally the No Kings protest was funded by the people who own Walmart. That's insane, believable, but it's like, hey, there should be some accountability. People died at these protests, and there was civic disorder. They never even tried to disperse the crowds. I feel like what we're seeing here is a genuine bourgeois revolt to continue against the America First agenda. And I think that you know, deportations are about restoring the middle class, about restoring wages, about restoring safety and identity, and they don't want it.
No, and deportations are the nice outcome because at the end of the day, eventually someone's going to come along who's like, all right, you had plenty of opportunities to leave. You know what I mean? And so when it comes to the Walmart heiress, right, funding all of these No Kings protests, which is ironic for the party that didn't even have a primary for their Kamala candidate. But you have these protests going on around the country, and then everyone is focused on the Middle East now because you have all these bombings. And like you said, it's not that it's we shouldn't be focusing on that, because I certainly don't want to be involved in another war, and I know plenty of other people who would agree we don't need to be involved in any other wars. However, the thing that I've realized is a lot of Americans are single issue minded, where they can only focus on one thing at a time. They struggle to juggle different things. And so the protests took up the majority of their mental capacity until the bombing started. And now that is all that they care about. And so you still have these protests going on. You still have people dying in the street. You still have massive corporations funding people to go out and commit acts of terror against other civilians and buildings and law enforcement individuals and all these different things. But that is irrelevant because for the people who are narrow-minded, they can only focus on one thing at a time. It's outside of their peripheral, and so they don't see it. And it's crazy to me when you're talking about, you know, Walmart coming in with the big box stores, and during COVID, those were the only ones that were allowed to stay up because you mentioned it's feudalism. It's this creating the system of peasants and, you know, all of these land, you know, the lords taking, but even the feudal peasants live better than we do in America today. I mean, they may have been poor, but they worked half of the year and had the rest of the other year off.
They also had organic food.
They had organic food that you were pretty much guaranteed to get married and have kids and have a successful life as far as that goes. I mean, today, none of those guarantees are really assured anymore. And so as far as feudalism goes, man, they had it a little bit better in certain aspects than we do today. Obviously, we get the technology of the world and stuff, but, you know, apples and oranges.
Yeah, I absolutely think this was distraction played a huge part. And as you mentioned, Americans, it comes in seasons of how we view different problems that we're running into. You know, you have a large amount of, okay, this is our major focus is may it be riots, may it be gun control, whatever, but we stick on a single topic and we're not able to expand our mind. So a lot of times what they go ahead and do is they try to distract us. And one of the things as far as being orchestrated that I can say is there was a few people that we interviewed while we were out in the field, and they would hold their signs up and they would have these big displays. I know Elijah had one person who had like this, I don't know, it was like supposed to be Lady Justice or something. And when he went up to her and asked her, well, what does this mean? What are you trying to protest against? And what is the symbolism that's coming from what you're showing? And she's like, I don't know. I need to come up with a better answer. I don't know. So a lot of these people don't even know why they're protesting. They're just out there just gathered in groves to go ahead and pretty much cause destruction and then change our view on whatever we really should be paying attention to.
Yeah, look at some of this. Okay, so some of the, like, what happened is, you know, the way that the violence started was the police, okay? But to be fair, I want to have a good discussion about police violence because I'm not these boomers who, like, you know, I tell people, hey, you know, they intentionally target media. You watch this. They intentionally target Australian media. They were even trying to accost like ABC, like meaning they were accusing us of committing crimes that we weren't committing. You can watch it live on their broadcast. Like, you touched us, you assaulted us. Like, yo, what the hell are you talking about? And of course, the boomers on the internet always go, brother, the police have a hard job. You know, you don't want to get in the way, brother. You know, also, believe it or not, being media on the field is a hard job too. It's painful. A lot of things happen. You're in danger from the police and from rioters, and you don't have a gun, so you're not safe from any of them. You get beat up from both of them, and also someone's like, so you think you have extra rights for having a press badge? We actually do. So we actually do, brother. Anyone with the phone is the media. Okay, dude. You do realize that in our amendments, it's always like there's no restrictions on the First Amendment. Okay, so there's no restrictions on the Second Amendment? Yes, there are. When you're in a controlled area, it's an unlawful assembly. There are exemptions for if you are a credentialed member of the press and you belong to a verified organization and you have your credentials and markings permanently displayed, which is why Henny knows before he left, made sure that you had equipment and you were labeled properly, that you have your credentials present. And it actually does give you immunity. You can get through police lines. You can be out after curfew. It actually freaking does. So the boomers that are always like, yo, what do you expect getting beat up by police? It's like, yeah, you know, like in war too. You know, yeah, technically there's no laws where you like not going to get shot if you're marked press, but typically in rules of engagement, if someone's marked as a medic or marked as a press, you don't intentionally target them. Like, look at this.
Unless you're a certain other country.
That's actually true. But look at this. I mean, here, check this out. Here's some of the footage. Casually throwing flashbangs. The guy just... I love they just throw them like it's fun, you know? What's crazy to me with the motorcyclists and all the bikes, it's like Mad Max. You know, it has like the Mad Max sound effect. This isn't even any of the crazy footage that we're looking at yet. This is just like the beginning. This is like right as they called the unlawful assembly. One of the things that did trip me out was they immediately went to use of force.
Yeah.
But here's the question. I kind of want to get your opinion on this. Mike, too, I'll just be like bringing up clips to play B-roll. Like, I don't need like sit and just watch them. They just play. The police came out. There's about several thousand officers. The event was permitted, I think, till about 4 or 5 p.m., which means that once you're past the permit on the streets, you're now in an unlawful assembly. You're blocking the streets.
Yep.
They brought out cavalry, immediately started trampling people, like critically injuring people, and that is what set off the crowd. They started trampling people, and they almost trampled me. And I know a guy, his name's Matthew. He's a 6'3", like chunky Mexican guy who's a reporter out there, and he texts me, he goes, dude, that was scary. And I've never had a journalist tell me that. I go, honestly, they were just like, we were like blacks in the 50s, you know? They're like beating us with batons and like treating us like we were criminals and like we were marked press. I feel like on one hand, I'm like, okay, maybe the police, like I talk about militarizing the streets and actually getting control of the cities. Hey, maybe we do need like the police to tell people, hey, you can't behave like this. You can't do this. But on the other hand, where do we draw the line? Because like it's easy to be like, yeah, I get control of the anti-Trump protesters, but when that flips on us, like kind of like how the National Guard was deployed by Tim Walz in Minnesota to enforce lockdowns, and then the police, in Australia, other countries were used to, beat up people eating outside. You kind of got to have the balance of force here. We're like, do we really want police to have this kind of force unprovoked to initiate violence on people for standing, right? That's what happened. And everyone called me a liberal online for talking about this. You're an MSNBC communist. Nobody. I was just there and watched a situation that could have been de-escalated, intentionally turned into violence. I don't know why, but I feel like there should be at least a chance. Like, they didn't announce an unlawful assembly at first.
No.
They didn't.
They just came in trampling.
They just came in trampling.
Had
people.
the sticks out. They were hitting us. And in one sense, I do understand. Police officers, they have their families at homes, their wives, their children, and everything, and their goal is to get back to them safely. So I can understand tensions are high, fear is high. But there was a lot of times where they just started attacking. I mean, they were just pointing people out, shooting randomly, very trigger happy in a lot of situations. Yes, we do want our police to be respected. That's a big part. I think that's why our country's gotten to the point where it's at now. People have no more respect for the police, and, they're pretty much able to walk all over them. But at the same time, you don't want them to just be acting, so crazy like we seen. They were shooting at press. They were attacking everybody. I mean, it got really chaotic. So I can see both sides because there was a lot of agitators that were within the crowd causing destruction, making threats. I see that. But at the same sense, you had those certain police officers who were in there as well, who were just going way too extreme and trying their best to really hurt anybody that was in their path. You could be press. You could have been a protester, anything. And if you were just standing there, they were willing to open fire.
Yeah. So I don't know what you think about that, but that's a discussion I wanted to bring up is like, was that right for them? Was that a correct move? Like, because by the way, I only found it was an unlawful assembly. I went to go get some electrolytes because everybody needs electrolytes. And like I had reported that the U.S. Marine Corps started using force on people to push them back, not violence, force, which is different. And of course, like these magatards, like they really are. Honestly, they're like some of these MAGA people are actually retarded. Like Trump could shit on their face, and they would go, "Dude, trust me. Q told us this was gonna happen.
It's the plan.
Yeah,
You gotta trust the plan, man."
And it's like, and even when I just said like they're using force on, I said, I repeat, the U.S. military is making contact with American civilians. They go, "Dude, what are you, a communist?" You're like, "No, I'm just, you got to kind of think of the long-term implications of this. Is this something that is going to help our country or hurt our country, having the military handle a police situation? Is it legal? Yes. But like, before you question everything, it is causing serious problems in the country, and the left is using this to make people angry. And it is a little bit awkward to see, like, why do you need the U.S. Marines for some crowd control? It doesn't really make sense, unless it was like the third day of like severe unrest, and people are getting shot, and it's turning into a military type situation. There's an insurgent group.
BLM.
Like, yeah, that actually the military there was fine. But like this was like, I mean, the police did handle it. I don't really know if we really need the Marine Corps there. I feel like that was a little bit of like, I was like, I don't know how that actually helped. And I'm not a liberal, anything. I'm just going, it does escalate bringing the U.S. military, not even the National Guard, to like the front lines, like with their 5.56s. That's not the National Guard with their clips, their not clips, their magazines out. Everyone's gonna hate me. It's like these guys were fully armed to the teeth, and they were nice. I have nothing against them. They're just following orders. But that's what I'm scared about is like the just following orders.
Yeah. Well, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, I mean, it kind of, the thing about like the whole boomer mindset of like, oh, you can't question the police, like, back the blue is like, obviously there was a time, and there still is to this day, where, police are unfairly looked at as these aggressors against specifically black people and, non-white people. And obviously we know that's a false narrative that the left created. So there is a time and place to say, okay, well, we're being a little bit ridiculous here with, the hatred against police, and, we should be backing them, but not at all costs. And a good example of that was actually also January 6th. When I was watching that footage, it kind of reminded me of the police reaction when people were protesting at the Capitol. And it's almost like they showed up that way to, obviously that was different in the sense that the government was involved, it was an inside job, and that's a totally different issue in that the police would have been behind it. And in this case, they were responding to something. But I do think that it begs the question, why can't more conservatives think in a more nuanced way? Why do they have to have this like one-track mind of like, well, we have to back police, and if you don't back police, well, then you're a liberal, you're a commie. It's like, can we be a little bit more nuanced? Can we think like actual human beings and put on our thinking caps here? 60-something-year-old man. Like, it's a little ridiculous when they can't just think for themselves. They have to just abide by one specific narrative. And I think that's a real problem in general in the MAGA movement. But with this protest in particular, I do think that it was Trump who wanted to show this strong force against this unrest, if you will. And I think he was doing what he thought maybe his base would want to see, which is true. They love seeing, a strong military, a strong police force, but it becomes more about theatrics at that point, and not just theatrics, but theatrics at the cost of hurting other people for no real reason. And I think that's the real problem here.
Mm-hmm. It's like the protests on day one where cars were being burned and people were, doing things that were destructive in the street. It's like, okay, there you have a justifiable sense of law enforcement coming in and forcibly removing people. But in Tampa, you had hundreds of people lining the street with their little pre-made signs and everything. No one's blocking the traffic. No one's setting things on fire. No one's burning down buildings. No one's breaking the laws that would require the government to come in. And you're talking about, it is a phenomenon that I'm studying right now as why boomers are so war hungry and bloodthirsty. Yeah. Like it needs to be studied because they're showing, and they're like, well, only 19% of Trump's base doesn't want to be in this war. And I was like, I would bet that 19% is 30 and under. I don't think there's anyone above the age of 30, or, very rare that you'll find someone above the age of like 30, 40 years old who isn't like, we need to go to war and we have to punish these people. We have to do all these things. And they're just like bloodthirsty. I mean, I know we'll be talking about that later with all these politicians saying bombs away, but it's the same with the movement here. It's like, well, send the police in, send the military in. We have to do this because this is stopping the evil protesters. And it's like, okay, great. There are certainly bad protesters at the rallies. I agree. And I don't agree with what they're protesting. And yet, if we turn into a police state, you can't revert that peacefully. Mm-hmm. And so that's like Elijah's saying, where does that line? Are we going to cross it? Because we're getting close. I mean, communist Russia, Bolshevik communists, arrested people for saying jokes about a certain religion. If you made a joke, they would kill you. 60 million Christians died because of it. So that is a military state. And that's what they're advocating for. They're like, you're just a communist supporting it. No, the communists did these things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to see the military in every state, blocking the roads and taking full control. But I think one thing that we ran into in California is the police have lost all respect. I mean, for years they've been attacked. For years they're telling us that, that they're violent, that we don't need to respect them. We've seen so many different politicians come out and saying stand up to them. And in places like California, which is almost 100% liberal, it was so crazy out there. They have no more respect for the police officers. And the one thing I have to say, and I'm not trying to defend too much, but with the military, they weren't really the biggest extreme people I ran into. Most of the time I found it was actually the local police who were acting more, aggressive in those types of situations. You had some military people that were trying to do crowd control that may have come off a little bit more violent in a way, but out of everything I've seen, I'd have to say the military was actually very respectful. Now, I would like to see where our police officers have that same ability to take control of what they're supposed to be doing. You know, go into these situations and shut them down and not have to have that bigger brother by their side to just try to, help prop them up and show authority.
Well, yeah, look, what I noticed, I said this, I've had a lot of time with police. Like, I'm not claiming to have, I didn't die, but I mean, you can see here, I got hit with a couple pepper balls in the hand, and the rest of my body's like pretty jacked up. I took one really nasty rubber bullet, which, you're an asshole, dude. Honestly, that sheriff, you are an asshole. And that is not, I identified to him. He's like, move. I was like, yeah, that's fine. I'm pressed. Because they literally, people don't realize, I spoke to the squad leader as I could tell the unlawful assembly was being called. They said, hey, as a member of press, I identified to him. I said, is it fine if I'm here when they call an unlawful assembly? He said, yes. So people say, well, who told you could be there? The literal guy leading the squadron. So he said it was fine. And I was very marked up. I had, my helmet's covered with press. I have credentials visible. This is not, you have nice cameras, bump helmets. You don't look like even everyone thought we were police. You look like you're not a sketchy guy. Plus, if you ever look at my skin, I didn't look a lot like the protesters, meaning because I'm Republican, red like Republican,
Where's that guy that donates for you to strip? We want to take your shirt off. I want to see these markings.
He did. But what's funny is that I got hit in the shin, in an ankle too with a canister. But everyone remembers back in 2020, they split open and broke my leg with one of those. But the thing about this was like, and he stood there, and I was like, yeah, I'm pressed. I held up my badge, pointed, and he just goes, just shoots me in the leg. I was like, I go, dude, the F is wrong with you? And I was like, rip my mask off. I was like, dude, you got to be kidding me. And then the other officer's like, I literally told him, I go, dude, that guy literally just intentionally shot me in the shin when there's nothing going on here. And he apologized. He's like, hey, I'm sorry, man. We're not, that's not protocol. And I was like,
He said that?
That's not protocol.
Wow.
I was like, yeah. And I was like, that's why I posted. I was like, hey, one of the officers apologized to me for the guy doing that. And what I bring up by this is I'm not anti-police. I actually am glad that they were rough with the protesters. What I'm concerned about was the way they were spooked and the lack of training. Because what I saw from the military is they were very well trained. Those guys, man, I didn't know. Our military knew. They were so organized, really knew how to control a crowd. They were even the formations and swapping out and covering the flank and grabbing each other by the back and all the signals and taps they were doing to get everyone under control. It was good. Then you had a bunch of fat Mexican guys, blindly, I have a video I'll bring up of just blindly just spraying crowds with rubber bullets and pepper balls. It's hey, I don't know if that's the wisest way to control a crowd, because now you're going to people get mad. I saw that on and then everyone who calls me a boomer for saying that about the leftists here defended me when I said that the police agitated the crowd at January 6th. All of a sudden, because it was different, because it was your people, it's oh, well, that's an agitation. Now, let me tell you this. The reason why people are weak, it's really true. People are weak for one reason. They don't have any balls, literally, and they don't have any testosterone. And everybody knows that we've been trying to tell you guys, get your testosterone levels up. Don't be weak. Do not give up the fight right now. Obviously, even this guy, Braeden's got the book, Embrace Masculinity, which you can get. You've got to check it out. But if you don't want to get a book, you should get that too. Check out Man's Edge, which, by the way, is the only other way besides injecting TRT to actually get your testosterone up. Why? All the powders and pills you can take from Amazon, they break down in your GI tract. They do not get absorbed. That's how it works. If you want to actually take fenugreek, IGF, NO2, the ingredients, the proven clinical ingredients that help boost your testosterone in a way that you can absorb them, you've got to take them sublingually under the tongue with a carbon delivery system. This is an American patented delivery system. That's what's the power of this. You might recognize the ingredients. They're trusted. They're safe. It doesn't even matter if I didn't even say FDA approved, because no one trusts the FDA anymore. But it's safe. But what this does is you get 98% more absorption than through powder and pills that you would take orally. And right now, and you select auto ship for Man's Edge, it's buy one, get one free. So you get 2 bottles for the price of one. And then I actually asked them, well, how do we get it at cost? So that if you guys trust your product, then you would give it at cost, because then you trust on auto ship that they'll keep paying for it, not cancel. So they gave us an extra 10% off with my promo code Elijah. So you're getting 60% off. You're getting the product at cost to them. They're making no money off of you, meaning they believe you will keep ordering the product. And I think, Mike, we've been having very, very good success. People have been continuing to order the product, and they've been claiming it works. Sorry for not introducing you earlier. That was my bad.
Yeah, no, Actually, I'm echoing for some reason. Am I echoing for you?
Yeah.
Yes, you are.
For some reason I am. But yeah, people have been loving it. I don't want to talk too much because for some reason.
Yeah,
I
never
can't
mind.
figure
Well,
it
it's
out.
good that I introduce you. It's the voice in your head. No, but yeah. So you got to check it out. Go to ElijahIGF1.com, ELIJAH, IGF, the number 1.com, promo code Elijah. Check out this product, and I want to remind you, they also have the IGF1 Titanium 600,000X and the Sleep Miracle Spray. Same thing. Why would you buy their Sleep Miracle Spray instead of melatonin or whatever? More absorption, better and more powerful product. Check it out. So I want to get back in this conversation. I have another video here that I really want to bring up. And I think it's like, listen to this guy. Do I have a video of him? Let me see. Yes, I do. Here he is. Okay, check this out. This guy's just standing there, and he apparently was just walking through because these people, it's a city, right? There's millions of people here. And he's just like, they started lining him up, and he just like gave up and just was like, I don't care anymore. You know, F these people. I spoke to him for a while. Look at this.
Why are you letting them just shoot you like that? Because I'm showing everybody else that it doesn't do anything. It doesn't fucking hurt. It doesn't do anything. They don't have any power over it. Just walk up to them. They can't do anything. Go ahead. Once you get gassed 2 or 3 times, you just taste it. It doesn't hurt your eyes.
Not true.
Move on. It's stupid. Why are you?
Yeah, it's like, I like how he's like, watch right there. He's like, yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, it's like, but it is little.
And he
Watch this.
jumps.
Yeah, it's like,
Have any power over it.
yeah, it's like, it is a little bit. The flash bangs, your ears do start to ring. I feel like I was back in my scene, but what I think, and I kind of think it seemed like the case, it seems like the city police were very untrained. The sheriffs were trained. CHP was trained, but the LAPD, and I get it though, because after BLM, who the hell would want to be a police officer in a major city? I don't think they're getting good recruits. And my understanding is, I don't know if this is true. There's always some experts in the crowd here who will prove me wrong. But like my understanding is that if you combine LA County in the area, there is like 10,000 less police officers than there are in New York. So New York has a much higher quota. I don't know if that's, I read, someone just tweeted that to me. They were like the number or whatever. But if that's true, that's interesting to find out. It did seem like, you know, it reminded me how fragile the world is. And like realistically, nothing is scarier. This is not even a joke. There was these 2 women pointing their 40 millimeter guns at me. And then I grabbed my friend Kayla. I'm like, yo, we need to move right now. And he's like, they're not going to shoot us. I go, you'd ever want to stand in front of a female officer and a firearm. That's the most dangerous position to be in your entire life. And he's like, I go, dude, they would accidentally shoot us.
It's true. A female cop and a liberal with a gun are the same thing. Someone is getting shot and it is the wrong person. That's what's happening.
Yeah, and look at this. This made it onto Jesse Waters here. You know, one thing I pointed out, Mike, I want to bring this up to you too, is that people in LA are scary looking, you know?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
They actually are scary. Look at this. Hey, sick guns though. Look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, but like, come on, like yelling to the U.S. Marine Corps. Look at this guy. Look at the fatigue on this guy in the middle. That is minority fatigue, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, he's so ready.
Like I saw this one guy sigh. This guy walked up. He's like, he was going, "You're not American. Kill yourself." And I watched him just do this. He has his gun. He goes. And I was just like, damn, bro's probably like, there's so, you know, like intruding thoughts. He's like, I could kill this guy.
Like,
You know what I mean?
It's just 3 seconds right there. I had a friend who's a Marine who made a video and he goes, you protesters in LA don't realize what you're signing up for. And this was right before Trump brought in the National Guard and the Marines. And he's going, look, I'm a Marine. I know a lot of guys my age who joined up thinking that we were going to go get to do stuff in the Middle East, and we lost the opportunity because we pulled out of Afghanistan. And so they are excited about going to LA. Don't mess with them, basically. And he ended up actually having to retract the video, take it down because his higher ups forced him to.
Really?
But the point still stands. All these young guys joined under Trump, or they joined maybe even during the first 4 years of Trump, because they were like, we're excited, we're here, because we were still in Afghanistan. This is before Biden pulled us out and everything. And they're like, we get to go fight the bad guys and rah, 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 patriotism. And then it ended. And so they're just sitting there on base. And all of a sudden these protests come up. I mean, they have to be itching. They're just ready to go. And now they have an opportunity. That's a terrible combination. That's what all those guys are just sitting there like, oh, please, 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 please. They're just waiting for the order.
I think they wanted to. Also, we got a $5 super chat. Let's go with the horn. We got a foghorn. From Ian Whiskey Tango Fox said, to be fair, Elijah, you do have a resting, quote, I need less than lethal face, which is actually true. We also have another super chat here as well. $10 from Kyle Fuller, 117 said, I just left a $5.9 million mansion owned by an Indian with a dot on the head. Headed back to my one-bedroom apartment I struggle to pay for. Deuteronomy 28:43. Where are the peasants? We are the peasants in our own country. Yeah, legitimately. Also, Homer J. Fuentes, let's go.
Let's go.
We got some confetti there. $20. We'll bring a woman on the screen for $20. So shout out to Ian Hennessy for covering the LA riots over the weekend. I stayed up to date thanks to the Mendoza Report, only at MendozaReport.com. By the way, I am not joking. In the future, because people don't know what Rift is, which is actually something you would know this. Like when you would say you were a Blaze back in BLM, everyone knew. And I remember this guy screamed in my face, it was a transgender, and he goes, he's like, it's with Blaze TV. Glenn Beck.
That's what they would say.
Turned my father against me. Glenn Beck killed my dad. I was like, I don't think Glenn Beck killed your dad. He's dead inside. He hates me. And I was like, so you'd say you're Blaze and they would actually try to kill you. But this is why we called it Rift, because if people are new to the show, make sure that you like the video if you're on Rumble, or you can see in the chat too on the new YouTube channel. I'm putting the link there. Follow it, because even if you're not a YouTube person on Rumble, everybody is on YouTube. That's why we just started a brand new channel. So you should send them the link to the YouTube. Say, hey, subscribe to this channel. But everybody tries to do Real America's Voice, One America News Network. I guess Newsmax is a little bit on its side. But then it's like, I think Blaze was a smart name, because it's just like Blaze, whatever. Mm-hmm. However, Glenn Beck's a little too popular that everyone knows it's Glenn Beck's, network or whatever. Rift is just like, you tell people, they walk up, who are you with? And you go, Rift TV. And they always say something like, I think I used to watch that. It's like, well, it's been around for 2 weeks, so you definitely never did. But I do think there is a really important thing, and I was talking to Kaylin about this. It's like, that kind of like right-wing like reporting that I did on January 6th, I don't think that's good, like calling them like patriots and everything like that. I think we need to, like, as the right wing, kind of like every time we make art, it's like a song. It's like, dude, I made a song about COVID. And it's like, okay, well, it's kind of freaking lame. Yeah. Actually, it's like, we don't, as the right wing, we need to like make real art, real news, real media. We're like, the reason why we're right wing is because we're honest and we're anti-government and we're really investigating the truth. But we're not like, but if our side is being retarded, we will explain to you that, yeah, MAGA-tards are retarded. We shouldn't go to Iran because Trump wants us to. It's not the time to trust the plan. But most importantly, it's like, I think that there's a new right that is formed. Some people call it the woke right. If you're gay and James Lindsay, but
are those two exclusive of each other?
No, they can't go without each other.
Okay.
Some people just ask you in San Francisco if you're James Lindsay, and that means they want to, the police want to put their baton somewhere else. No, but do you know what I'm talking about? I think that because you've worked in Con Inc. for a long time, I worked in Con Inc. You've been working around Con Inc. And we still do. So we literally still do. But I do think there's a younger version of people. You mentioned this a second ago, Braeden. That's like, we're not accepting this whole like farce of like loyalty to the Republican Party. We realize that they're corrupted, they're bought out by AIPAC and lobbies, and it's like we got to form our own media, our own art, our own people, our own companies, and we're not going to wait for them to invite us to their parties and their clubs because their parties are lame and Jewish. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that, but it's true. I don't want to go to them.
Just like the event I spoke at a little while ago.
Yeah, that was literally what I was thinking of.
Literally, yeah. We were just talking about that before the show. Oh my gosh. It's the same with the music industry. Everyone was like, I made a rap song about why being a leftist is gay. And it's like, could you just make a good song, please? And then everyone just uplifts these people and like puts them on this pedestal and has them come sing at their, events or whatever.
Ben Shapiro rapping.
They come up on stage.
Look, our culture just sucks on the right. And like we shouldn't even have to have like right-wing culture. It should just be like better culture than what the left is presenting if we really want to be competitive with them. And I also think, and we were kind of talking about this earlier too, like off camera, but like we have this tendency as on the right to say like, oh, you don't like the city environment you're in, just move, just go in the middle of nowhere and live in a bunker somewhere. And I feel like it's kind of psyopy because it like gets the right out of major cultural hubs. So instead of building something better, or at least trying to compete with the left in a meaningful way with an actual competitive product in whatever industry you might be talking about, we leave, we run away. It's like fight or flight. We never fight, we flight. And that's, I think, the biggest problem with the right is we don't actually, and I think part of it is like, we have to be, it's a populist problem because you're sort of just allowing anyone and everyone to make, culture or to be a part of it. But you do kind of have to be a little elitist because, there is something to be said for higher IQ people and people who actually have good ideas and are going to make art in whatever form it may be. That's something we miss on the right. We're like, well, if you're going to sit here and be like Oliver Anthony and sing about, being I guess someone who just like lives in the middle of nowhere and is poor and whatever, like, is that really art? Is that really culture? Is that really what we want to identify with? I don't think that's white excellence.
His wife divorced him too. I don't know if you saw that.
I didn't see that.
I don't like to bring up personal drama that people don't release themselves, but he releases. Sorry, he said after she waited until he got all of his money, and then divorced him and took half his. She asked for 60% of like his earnings for the rest of his life.
Many such cases.
And all I wanted to say is that's why Bro's going to come out with another. He just came out with a new song. I might actually listen to it because that's evil. Anyway, say what you were going to say.
Super evil.
No, I was going to say, because we were talking about how the right is now, and then you say that we're creating a new kind of right wing that people are gravitating towards. But the way the right wing party is it's not even close to what it used to be. That's why I'm really happy about the book club that we have now, where it says where the right went wrong. And you can see how far we've drifted away from where we originally were as a party. And then also how far we've even drifted away from what our founding fathers wanted of this country. I mean, we're not even close to the same types of views. We shouldn't have long alliances with foreign countries. Well, we're creating alliances with Israel and anybody else who we can. And just this endless trying to go out and seek the war. Like before, we used to be more of a way, if we got attacked, then okay, we'll go back at our enemy. Now it's at the point now where we have to go out and be the world police. I mean, that really started around when Bush was in office. He gave his speech at West Point. He got all of us riled up. He said, we got to go get these weapons of mass destruction. We got to stop everybody in their tracks before they even get this type of power. But that's far from where we should be. And if we keep staying on this track, then it's just going to destroy us as a nation. And we're seeing that. So the people that are actually speaking out against this is not a new right. It's actually our views are closer to what our founding fathers were and what the original conservative party was.
25 years ago, what the conservatives were, more like 1990s. Like being a 1990s conservative now, the liberals are calling woke right. But it's like, hey, I'm actually like, that's what people say, are you conservative? The answer is no, because I'm not trying to conserve anything currently. There's nothing to conserve. But I do want to blow up the system and return back to, but might I remind you, a couple hundred years ago, we owned black people. Isn't that crazy? Like that's actually a crazy statement. Like that's, and I'm not saying that's a good thing, I'm just stating the fact that like, that's not a long time ago, right? So things have rapidly changed. Rhodesia fell in 1980. You know what I mean? 45 years ago, we still had apartheid in the 90s, right? We still had these things. Now, shout out to South Africa for dismantling all 6 of your nukes right before apartheid fell. That was so smart. They were like, this is how you knew the world was full of crap? The whole world said apartheid was evil and that the country would be great under black rule, but also pressured them to make sure that they dismantled their nukes before blacks took over. So it's going to be the same. It's going to be just as good, but we can't trust them with anything. So it was like, okay, so what is going on here? I mean, it is kind of an insane thing. I do want to mention something very, very important. Many of you guys know that here at the studio, we're going to get into some of the Iran stuff, some of the stuff with Israel. I have a couple more clips here from the riot, just because it was very, very interesting. And everyone knows we kind of got our start slightly offensive with like covering riots and stuff. The audience is not really there as much anymore for any of this stuff because I think everyone's just sick of it. And people basically just like, are basically either sold out and listen to like Charlie or listen to like Nick Fuentes. You know what I mean? It's like kind of have like not a lot of people in between. We're going to kind of come in and be the in between, so that's kind of the fun of it. And we'll have to build the audience. But I like the middle ground a little bit because there's a lot of people from the Charlie side that like are never going to get converted unless someone's trying to proselytize them. So we're like missionaries for like the real right. We're getting out there to make sure that people know that you can be a normal person and still hold nationalistic real views. Now, speaking of that, my lips were freaking messed up. Being in the sun, something that's happened to me, like right now, I guess it's the weather, getting like cracked lips and stuff like that. Your lips are a little chapped too. I'm not judging.
Thanks for noticing. I appreciate it.
No, but here, look, have a little bit of this. It's just chapstick. Like it's literally it's tallow, and I don't even know how to put it on, but it's tallow. And the reason why I put on the lips is because it's like people like tallow. Ew, you don't want to put that on your lips. You don't want to like whatever. But it's a moisturizer and it's natural. People know people cook in tallow. Why would we put this on our face? Well, it's actually something. This is what people used to use. Where it was like we're so advanced. We have NutriCare and parabens and shit. It's like, okay, how do people like protect their skin back in the day? You always find out like, oh, they weren't even getting cavities. Like it's like what was going on? Well, this stuff is like classic moisturizer, better than anything that's unnatural. It's synthetic. There's no chemicals. And in order to make it smell good and whatever, all they did was add some honey for consistency and essential oils made from the only natural sources like tea tree and stuff. So this is like, and I didn't know what tea tree oil was. And then in Australia, they have tea tree forests. It smells so beautiful. And you can go smell the tea tree forests. And so you get oil from tea. They're actually called tea trees. But they also have a bunch of other stuff too that is like, I was using the sunscreen out there, which is just zinc, right? So yeah, it's like, and everyone's like, oh, well, it makes your face a little white. Yeah. Isn't that what we're all trying to make the world a little more white?
Do we not want to be a little more white?
Yeah, is
That's what I'm saying.
that bad? No, but you put some on too, and it's like different consistency. All this stuff is like you realize how much the unnatural stuff that we use sucks because this stuff feels different, it tastes different. It doesn't taste like poison.
Doesn't have all that extra crap in it where you could feel it caked on. This is actually much more natural, better for you. So yeah,
fluoride-free toothpaste, all this stuff. Grab it at vanman.shop/Elijah. Promo code Elijah. That's vanman.shop/ELIJAH. Use promo code Elijah for 10% off all this stuff. Okay, coming back into the riot real fast to just post something.
You mentioned about the police too. So they have 148,000 police in California with a population of 3.39 million, and then New York only has 126,000 police, but their population is only 19 million.
Okay, so maybe it's like per can you put this up on the screen real fast? Because look at this. This is not like, I don't think this is very good training. Look. I just don't. It's like an old man. Can't someone just like an officer just walk up to him and like subdue him?
Yeah.
Look at that. I mean,
oh my gosh. That's like actually very jarring.
Yeah, and they're just like, but by the way, I want to remind you, it was peaceful. They were just standing here and then they just like rolled in and just started shooting people. But obviously they were also there for violence, maybe. Can I ask you guys a question? This is what I want to summarize here from this is, the police escalating the violence, instigating it, and manhandling people, is that a good thing or a bad thing? And targeting press with the idea there's a lot of fake press out there. Was this a good thing what LA did? Like prevent a serious riot by just literally, I'm going to show a picture after I get your opinion, like actually maiming people. They shot people's eyes out. People got ran over. They were shooting people in the head, like targeting their heads. It was crazy. And also, I want to remind you though, people were throwing rocks off of roofs in LA. It was scary. They were throwing boulders and shit. And I have filmed that. But I don't know what you think about this because that's kind of my end story. Is this response helpful? Will this end riots? Will this end protests? Or is this just going to embolden people to rebel more?
I think you could see it go either way. It's really hard to tell, especially at this earlier stage in it, where some people might get emboldened. They might get brave. They might go, screw these cops. We're just going to go start doing stuff. In which case, it becomes more violent and it just perpetuates the problem. But on the other hand, you might have people who just go, oh, well, it's not worth it, in which case, okay, great. Now you're sort of giving the government leeway to push further and further and further. I mean, you were standing there with press badges and you had a sheriff literally look at you, see all the stuff, point and shoot, which for the record, his buddy should have given you his gun and been like, all right, now hit him back.
Hell yeah.
Even trade right there. That's the law of equivalent exchange for men. But it's tough because on the conservative side of things, and which is hard because like you said, you don't want to really identify as a conservative, but on the conservative side of things, it's unlawful civil unrest where you are damaging property. You are close to committing acts of terror because you're burning down businesses, both private and public. You're destroying property. That needs to be you need to stop that. But people just standing on the side of the road is a bridge too far.
Yeah, let me see if do we have this? This is from Snowflake. Yeah, you got this right here, right? I'm gonna play this. This is somebody hit in the face.
Yeah.
So what happened there?
Is that the guy who lost his
So
eye?
I wasn't able
know.
to catch the shot of it, but the guy was actually being aggressive. He was heading towards the police. They were asking him not to turn around, and they opened fire, and they hit him with one of the rubber bullets. And then there was another gentleman, I believe that's under it as well. That guy also was kind of inciting the violence. He was coming at the police, and he got shot one in the arm, and he got
Hey,
shot
Mike, can
in
you
the
take that off
belly.
real fast?
And the crazy part was, though, right afterwards, he started talking about how he was going to go back out and do it some more, and how he needed to make sure that his voice was heard, and that they knew he was not going to be messed with. So I found that pretty interesting after he just got done crying about his belly.
Yeah, let me see. Where's this? I guess Sarah got this footage here. Nothing says like helping your community like spray painting private businesses. One of the craziest things. I'm gonna see. I didn't see the other footage that you said. Is it somewhere down there?
Yeah, it should be in there.
Is it I just don't see it anywhere. Protesters are hit with rubber bullets during this one, probably. Let's see. Yeah, here it is. Yeah.
Now you good, bro. You just probably hurt.
That's the 40 mil rounds. That's not a rubber bullet, bro. That's the 40. That's
The
the
metal
40
one got him here, but the rubber bullet, I think, caught
Okay,
him here.
yeah. I only got hit with a rubber. Dude.
Andrew, what's more? Look at this, y'all. They shot him 2 times, bro.
You know that leaves like a permanent scar too. I don't know what you think about that, but like, from my understanding, someone correct me in the thing. I don't think the 40 mils you're supposed to be using on protesters that are unarmed or like, and they were shooting people just sitting on the
Well, that was
curb.
my question to you. I was like, how are they not? How is this even legal for police to be doing?
Well, the metal ones they're not supposed to shoot you like that with, right? I think it's just the rubber they're allowed to.
Yeah, some of what they were doing was like I don't know if I can find the clip here. This is not in here of the people spray painting the wall, but dude, like one clip that we did over 25 million views on just one video that we put up, and like several of them did like over 10 million. Meaning people want to see this footage. And I think where we shine here, and I mean this because it's you guys supporting us, where we shine at Rift with riot coverage is we make sure we get it up in real time, which is very hard to do, by the way. You have to run usually through line of fire to try to get signal, and it takes like 15 to 30 minutes to get one clip up. So you're dodging bullets, hiding, trying to get the police to stop, and you just have to sit there and just wait for your clip to get up. You have to down convert it while you're there down to 480p and then rescale it and put it up. And then if you have chance to put a logo on it, you can. But it's like nobody does it. And so we've always been good at that. And that's what we want to show people is like we got on the plane and this guy was like, hey, yeah, the riot, there was no riots. It was like actually there was more military at the city than there were protesters. There was about 50,000 people there. Do you know that the No Kings protest is the largest protest in American history? Do you guys know that? Yeah. Bigger than Women's March, bigger than BLM. You couldn't get through the city without running into people. It was huge. Wow. And so, yeah, there were several thousand police officers there. I just don't know what happened to that. I don't know, Mike, can you find that clip, by the way, or see if, can you text Sam to find that one of them spray painting the building? What do you think? I mean, you have a conclusion on that, whether they should have been using this level of violence?
I don't think they should have. I think the footage speaks for itself. I mean, there was like an old man they were pushing around. I don't think that was necessary. I think the violence was a little out of control. And I think the right, unfortunately, or rather conservatives, because I would say we're, right wing for the most part at this table, but wouldn't necessarily identify as conservative. But conservatives, I think, unfortunately can't see that like a lot of the time that, if it's their side that's under attack, like at January 6th, like, oh, then the police are bad. But in this case, it's okay somehow because they're leftists. Like, I just don't think that should necessarily be the response. I think it was a little too strong. What I will say, though, I want to talk about what the question you were asking earlier, Elijah. Will this have the effect that, these riots will be more under control now, or will they react adversely and continue to riot? Well, here's what I think. I think that if these riots were coordinated, which we now know that they were, I don't think there's anything stopping them from continuing to protest, from continuing to riot. Because, well, I guess in this case it was mostly protesting, not rioting. But the reason why that is because people will continue to do things for money. If they're being offered a large sum of money, they're just going to continue to do it. If these protests were organic, then this kind of response maybe would have been helpful, would have been beneficial to curb these protests. But I have a hard time believing that if there's going to continue to be these, large, coordinated, funded groups of people. They're just going to keep doing it. People will do a lot of things for money.
I don't know if you guys can see this, but look at this. This is look at this. By the way, I put this up and I was like, it's like Gotham City because look, it's like you're like, oh, they're just spray painting. That's weird. There's Kaylin, and then like you just have like this like Antifa girl just like it's like swinging and like hanging. Like, what the hell's going on here? I don't know.
Drugs.
But I will say, look, I don't know if you can see this. Look at that shot. So that one was rough. That was the guy I was with. He got hit with the 40. Look at that with like a hole. But it's even worse. The one on it hit his femoral artery, and
Oh my gosh.
and it was like, he had to like get it, like he had to go to the emergency room. It bursted. Isn't that so gross? I don't know if you guys can see that.
See, that's just disproportionate response. Like, the people were protesting, not rioting. When it comes to rioting, and
they weren't rioting. You're right. They
That's
weren't.
true. That's an important distinction.
Rioters,
Yeah.
if you're going, like I said, the BLM riots, burning down buildings, setting fire to things, destroying property, attacking other people. Okay, the reaction is necessary. Just like I, as a civilian, can't walk up and shoot someone in the face. Someone has to pull a gun on me first to where I can literally say, okay, I can articulate that I was actually in fear of my life. That is when the response of self-defense is appropriate. But the cops didn't have a self-defense response. They just had let's hit anybody so that we make a scene so that people maybe don't risk going up. That's just a preemptive strike. And we could talk about why those on certain countries that don't have nukes might not be appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, they did take it to the extreme, that's for sure. There was a lot of incidents that they took it way too far. It was an abuse of power. I do like to think that our police should be a little bit tougher in certain areas. I'm not going to deny that. You have a lot of people where we say play stupid games, win stupid prizes. There was plenty of people who were in those scenarios that won the prizes that they were looking for.
They deserved it, basically. You're right. Some people like, if they threw like a bottle at a cop, you know?
So there is times when I do believe that, showing strength, showing that, we're not going to allow this kind of pollution to come into our cities. We're not going to allow this craziness to continue. I do think that's not a bad thing. In the same sense, though, I think that there, as you mentioned before, there has to be more training for these police officers. A lot of them just go into the academy. Then once they get done with the academy, they go out into the force. There's not much more training that comes after that. Their mental health plays a big part, too. If you got people throwing things at you, attacking you, being able to actually stay composed in those types of situations, very difficult for them. But it's also part of their job to make sure that they're not being extreme. So I think there is a balance that we have to come to where, yes, this was too much, but at the same time, we need to make sure that we do have a strong police force. So this way they are respected again. This way they know that not anybody can come in, start destroying cities and think, they can say or do whatever they want. Because a lot of these protesters that were confronting the police officers were very fearless. They didn't care. And the reason they didn't care is because of the fact that our police have been pretty much, their strength has been watered down, and that's come from multiple attacks from either political parties, groups, television, wherever it may be. And that's why you had a lot of police officers actually leave the police force, is because of the fact that they were being demoralized and they weren't being allowed to do the job they needed to do. Instead, they had to play, the politics games of worrying about everybody's feelings. So yes, I do believe that it was an excessive force in a bunch of those situations, which is uncalled for. But in the same sense, I think we do need a strong police presence in those types of situations.
I will say, before we move on, one of my favorite things was the regular people engaging with the protesters, like someone getting in front of someone's car and that person just flooring it. Like,
hell yeah. I want to play it, but on YouTube I looked it up and we can't show that they're age restricted right now. People getting run over.
Those videos have more of an impact on the rioters than the police going in and overextending with this, or even just exerting their force, because it shows that regular people are also fed up with it. And so when you live in this subjective morale world that we have, where anything goes, kind of, there's no objective reality, like you said, there's no objective beauty, there's no objective truth. It's like, oh well, we're just on the conservative side, so we're just going to make something that's conservative. It's like, no, the idea of objectivity is that it doesn't change while the rest of the world tries to change it. Like that's why I love being Catholic. I'm not changing Christianity. I just went back to the original one. It's like I have the roots, right? The beauty, the objective truth stays there. And so when the people are getting to the point where they're just like, you know what? I used to support this, but I'm just going to floor it. I can't risk my life getting attacked and dragged out of my car, like in the protests in LA years and years ago. I don't remember the King.
It was the BLM protests where they pulled people out, and they also, there's multiple cities in Dallas. They did the same thing, and you watch a lot of what you're seeing. I think is what you're calling fatigue, and you can call it a lot of things. You can call it black fatigue, or this fatigue, or female fatigue, or it's like what it is people are tired, and the real fundamental reason people are tired, and I mean this, it's because you have to work harder and longer and smarter in unique ways, and you're falling behind, and so when that starts to happen, and then you see that people are trying to distract you with social issues, you're going, dude, listen, I cannot afford health insurance and my son has an infection and I cannot buy him basic antibiotics because if I do it, which I will, right? Because I have to go to the hospital. Now I'm on a credit card debt, but that's not the only credit card debt that I had to get on this month. I'm behind, every month about $1,000. And this is hypothetical. This is not me. This is the average American, really. It's about 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, which means that they're every month getting expenses that they actually don't have the money for. And this is 60% of Americans. They say 52 to like 65. I'm just averaging at 60. So an average about 2 out of 3 people are living in a way that they feel like they are trapped. When you're living like that, if you're single, cut down your expenses and just find a way to live cheaper. But when you have kids, this is the problem. When you have kids, you can go without antibiotics and risk it yourself. You can skip a meal yourself. You can't make your kids not eat. You can't. Yeah. And I found out it's like what? 2 out of 10 adults right now are skipping with 2 or more kids. So about 20% of adults that have kids are skipping a meal per day right now to be able to make sure their kids can eat enough food to live. And, that would be fine. And that, by the way, that also wasn't including like poverty. I think that the whole like parameters, that was like the middle class. So the middle class is skipping meals. There's more people that skip meals if they're not on benefits. It's like, this is actually in such an insane direction that when someone's like, oh, hey, then let me pull you out of my car because my illegal can't stay, my illegal dad, you're like, hey, you're gonna die right now because he's gonna run you over because my son, like, it needs amoxicillin. And it's like, I just paid for this. I couldn't even afford it. I'm not going to let you ruin my car too. And I think that struggle, this is where a lot of these neocons are failing the right wing because they're still in this capitalism, big government sucks mentality. And a lot of us on the right are going, we're not pushing for, socialism. We're not pushing for communism. We're going, whatever this is not the capitalism our parents grew up with. Whatever this is that we're dealing, oh, you sold our currency to private families of the Federal Reserve? Oh, you took us off the gold standard. We've lost 99% of our buying power. I just found a number, and I want to get your opinion on this of why this is happening. I know this is a bad index to judge income off of, but I think it's like 80 years ago, if you just took an average wage of a college grad, like 80 years ago, I was reading, and you looked at how much like gold they could buy. Someone can fact check in the exact amount of years this is.
I have the numbers.
You do?
Yeah, I have the exact numbers if you want them.
Do you know them?
Yeah, 1960, a college graduate a college graduate had an average salary of about $11,000. If you account for inflation today, that's 80 to 100K, roughly, like anywhere in that. That was the average range of what they could equally afford. Today, 2025, college graduate average salary is like 50 to 60,000. So they don't even have the same buying power that a college graduate in 1960 had, and everything's more expensive.
But it's even worse. I'm saying like right before 1960, like 1930, the equivalent of the amount of gold you could buy if you spent your full salary on gold as a college grad was $24,000 a month. So you're making so like back in like the 30s, the buying power they had was like the equivalent of graduating college and getting like a $250,000 a year job out of college. Like that's really not okay. Like meaning, look, and I employ people here, so I know everybody would want to make more money. We're paying you what, $12 now a month at least?
I don't even get that much. I think that's just the editing department.
No, the department, they split it. We provide free zins, but they have to cut them into like the pizzas in grade school. You used to put a little piece. But like what's really struggling for me as a company owner, as somebody who has a team that I'm responsible to pay, is in this industry we're paying competitive wages. Like it's more than the Blaze pays their people in the same positions, but at the same time, it's just not a lot of money, and it's not easy to survive on it for anyone. And it's not just here; it's all companies are dealing with this.
Yeah,
and it's like And guess what? Costs are only going up for the companies. So now owners, I was reading now, like owners are now on average like taking a month less of pay than they were before. Like they're taking less and less money from the company to just keep people's wages. And it's making me sick to my stomach because I'm going, shit, this is bad because somehow we got to get everyone in the company up 30% or 40% in their income, but the money doesn't appear, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm just saying, like, if I'm going through this, I talk to every business owner, they're going through it. And it's like the wages are not slightly matching the ability to afford life. And what it's done, it's gutted the middle class. It doesn't exist anymore. Being middle class is rich now. You in a state of Florida, you got to make $217,000 to live a basic intro middle class life with owning an intro home and 2 cars. Nobody pays that much money. Nobody's making that money unless you're an entrepreneur. You're like the top 5%. Okay, so then we've gotten rid of it. So fuck your stupid social issues and your legal stuff. I want to know who did this to me, and I want their heads on a pike. You know?
It does have to do with, I think, if you will, like social issues to some degree, in the sense that like our country's being raped right now. We are a multicultural corporation. That's what America is right now, and that's largely why you're seeing a lot of what you just described there, Elijah. Because when you don't have a shared identity among a population of people, you start to lose focus of what really matters, and you start to just basically, you know, worship money. And because the people who are coming here, they have no allegiance to this country. They have no allegiance to who we are, what our heritage is as a country, as a race, as a people. They don't, that doesn't compute to them. They're here to make money. They will send money home to their country. And a lot of times they'll commit crimes. And, you know, it's not to be inflammatory when I say this, but identity, your racial identity does matter as a country. And this used to be a country where that meant something. And that's why conservatives for so long talked about how great capitalism is, because it is great when it applies to a group of people with a shared identity who value the same things and really want to make this country a better place, who really want to make America great again. But the problem is people don't care about America. A lot of the people in this country do not care about America. They only care about money.
Why?
So they're screwing people over because they have no allegiance to this country. They have no allegiance to the people who live here, who are true, real Americans, patriots. They don't care. These are people who are being imported here. Mm-hmm. And so that's the real problem. Like, for example, what happened with Elon Musk and the visa situation and bringing the Indians here. That's why it was so controversial, because we're sick and tired of being told that, you know, it has nothing to do with race. It's, you know, we're just, you know, Republicans, we just stand for a stronger economy and we just want capitalism. Okay, but at the end of the day, that's just, people are just going to get screwed over. Americans who are hardworking, who just want to make, you know, a living for their families. You think if it's just as simple as, well, we just need to have a good economy, we just need to have a capitalist structure. It's more complicated than that.
It's like Vivek cosplaying an American.
Yeah.
That's crazy. He like wears a cowboy hat and he like have his shoes off and be like,
barefoot.
You know, yeah, barefoot, smelling like curry powder. And he'll be like, you know, like he makes these like, it sounds like chat. It's like how I said, Chat GPT. Please write a phrase as if you were a politician you're a politician, but you were AI trying to have humans think you were a real politician like them. That would be Vivek's tweets, like, good morning, fellow brothers and sisters of Christ or something, or of God. Is it Christ? You know, having children is the future. We need better schools and cheaper food and a life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. Anyway, my feet stink, and I'm not an American. And then I say that he's not American. I go, that guy's not an American. He's an anchor baby. That doesn't make you an American. Being born here does not make you American, okay? That is the biggest lie that people have been sold. The idea that being born somewhere makes you American. So you're telling me right now that, okay, my kids born in Australia, okay, but one of their parents is Australian, their family is Australian, and they've been there for hundreds of years and helped build the country. Okay, that's still a little bit questionable, but if he's going back to Australia all the time, has connections to the country, has friends out there, family, goes to school out there, doing some, you know, schooling stuff, summer camps, whatever. Okay, great. Yeah, okay, you're still Australian. You're detached. He'll never really feel the same identity as his family who's over there, but it's enough to have a cultural tie. But guess what? They're still going to identify as Americans because this is where they live, this is where they grew up, and we're going to tell them, you're an American. Yeah, you're an Australian citizen, and you know you're Aussie, but you're more Western. You know what I mean? Like, we do Aussie things because we have beans on toast in my house. I know it's crazy for breakfast. For breakfast, we'd eat beans, baked beans. But on top of that, It's even worse than the COVID camps for many. But you can't. That doesn't make him really like an Aussie. You know, he's like, oi, oi, oi. Why do people think that LA looks like Tijuana? Because you're bringing Mexicans and they turn it into Mexico. It's not that hard to understand. Like it's just not hard to understand. That doesn't mean that all Hispanic people are, you know, beaners, or, you know, all Hispanic people are like horrible people and, you know, whatever. As Trump said, some of whom are good people. However, a country is its people. And if the people are Mexican, and then you're in Mexico, and in LA you are in Mexico. And I don't think people understand this.
Yeah.
And like North Dallas is Indian.
Conservatives don't understand it. They don't.
No.
Why?
Because
It's annoying.
it's, you know, because actually there's a reason why. Because a lot of the people who don't understand it are from a generation where that was not really a problem, or at least they weren't seeing the consequences of that problem. And right now, Gen Z, you know, we're waking up to this reality where it's like, what have they done to us? You know, they really changed this entire country and the makeup of it. You know, probably you can trace it mostly to the 60s, I would say, is when you started to see that importation. And so, you know, even though boomers obviously did experience what that was like, the aftermath of it and the duration of it where we started to import them, I think Gen Z, we're the generation to really wake up and say it. And, you know, maybe even millennials too, although I would say they kind of are more in line with boomers in a lot of this. But Gen Z, a lot of the time, except for you, Elijah, you're an exception. I'm speaking generally here. But I think Gen Z really woke up and they said, wait a second. And they're doing the same thing with Israel's and the Jewish influence. I know everybody keeps saying, Anna, name the Jew. Okay, I named them, whatever. Point is, like, I name them all the time. I mean, clearly you never watched my show Wrong Think, but that's okay, whatever. Anyway.
Someone just said you were on a network called Jew Peters Network or something like that. I saw. Oh, I didn't know what that meant. Sorry, I literally did. I thought that was an inside joke.
No, that was that. What they meant is Stu Peters. That's where I aired my show, or one of the places I aired my show.
You
Wrong
were on
Think.
there?
Yeah, that was where I aired Wrong Think.
I've seen
It's
your show.
so funny.
But I don't.
Well, because I also had it on Conservative Daily, which there is
Okay,
something
yeah,
else
yeah,
now,
yeah. I
but-
saw it somewhere different.
And then also before that, I was on LFA TV. But
I remember that.
yeah. But anyway, they, I mean, I think what it is they didn't really have to deal with the consequences of it to the degree that Gen Z and even millennials do too, because we're the ones who are dealing with the inability to buy a house and with, you know, just the inability to live the way boomers did. And so I think you talked about this on Tim Pool's show recently, you and Sarah. But it's so obvious to me because I've seen it. I'm somebody who has, you know, I'm the generation that has to experience it and deal with it. And I think a lot of us here are too. So yeah, I think that's why boomers just won't embrace it. They won't just admit that is what the problem is. They don't want to talk about race.
Well, that is it. They don't want to talk about race, but we're talking about, you know, we have all these like social distractions that are keeping us preoccupied. That's why Gen Z isn't paying attention anymore, because those distractions are still there, but the consequences of the mass immigration are also now present. And so all the boomers, they were distracted. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. And they're like, Reagan's the greatest guy ever. Meanwhile, trickle-down economics destroyed our economy. And the mass immigration amnesty that he granted, was it 20 million illegals? Someone could fact check me on that. Like he had one of the largest, if not the largest, amnesty grants to non-citizens, to illegal aliens that we've ever had in this country. And all the boomers were sitting here like, Reagan is our guy. He tore down the wall. He had one of the biggest gun bans in the history of this country.
Yeah.
Where is that in the conservative manifesto? Right? Trickle-down economics, great in theory, just like communism. Everyone gets along and everyone's all great. Except communism, you end up with Mao's China, where 80 million people die, and, you know, Stalin and Lenin and killing all the Christians and all that stuff, because people are selfish inherently. And so trickle-down economics, where, the guy up at the top, he's going to do a great job and the company will succeed and it'll make more money, which means he'll give his employees more money. No, he won't. Why would he? He doesn't have a reason to.
Exactly.
All these boomers own 2 to 3 houses. They graduated college in the 70s. They got a high-paying job right out of the gate, right? The equivalent of like $80,000 to $100,000 a year right out of the gate. They go, they find a wife, they settle down, they have some kids, they're working this job, relax. It's not really that hard, let's be honest. America's infrastructure is still building, and because our economy is still powerful, because the dollar still mattered at the time, you can make some pretty good money. So these guys, maybe they do a business, maybe they just work, they become, a manager position, even some CEOs, but they buy 2 to 3 houses, and then they retire at 65 and they sit back like, ugh, these younger generations, they're so lazy. I had to pick you'd have no idea what I went through when I was your age. It's like, no, dude, you have no idea what we're going through right now. That's why it's the most annoying thing ever when boomers online are like, you don't care about the war. No, dumbass, I can't afford my car payment. Of course I don't care about the war. It would be great if everything else in life was set to the point that I could care about something that happened in a country 15 hours by plane away. That would be wonderful. If that was my biggest concern, was what happened to people that have nothing to do with me. Unfortunately, it's not. Like you said, families with 2 kids, our parents are just forfeiting a full meal on average, right? Like 20% of families with 2 kids or more are forfeiting a meal. I don't want that to be me. I don't want that to be my kids. I don't want my kids to have to grow up wondering where their next meal is going to come from. That's not the American dream. That's why boomers are so disconnected. That's why all these elected officials who are doing all this stuff, the internet's forever. All of these people who are putting this up don't realize that they are not going to win their re-election campaign, because this will come to light, and Gen Z and millennials who are waking up are going to be the largest voter base, because the rest of their voter base is going to die of old age. Gen Z is going to vote them out of power, and they're going to lose everything and sit there scratching their head going, well, what happened? I was pro-Israel. It's like, dude, give me a break.
Yeah, getting tired of it. No, you're both right. I mean, we're dealing with the repercussions of what they made them feel good in the time, or what they thought was, to give them kind of like a justice warrior or whatever you want to call it. But one thing I wanted to point out was actually heartbreaking. This is my first trip to California. And when I went there, first off, I felt like I was the minority by far.
You are.
Yeah, in Los Angeles. But when you looked around the city and you seen the way they were building it, the architecture that they had and the plan that they had for California versus where it is now, it's just sad to see the destruction of it. Like the
dilapidation.
Yeah.
Like you can see what the architects, wanted for this country, and then you see where people have taken it. That's because it lost its ethos. I do want to mention something really important. By the way, sorry for missing the book club on Sunday. We had a riot to cover. But we're still reading. Reminding you guys, that gives you one more week to win this new Kindle. We have our book club on Sundays. Everything we're doing here is like a 2-year, 3-year long game. Like everyone's like, what is all this stuff we're doing? Well, we're just going to continue to do it. We're reading together now really good books that I believe will help you to gain a worldview. To like, you ever watch these shows? You're like, if you're someone who way more than us, this is good for you because you can learn more. If you're someone who you're like, how do they know those things or recall those things? It's because we read things. It's not just books, it's articles, it's pair articles, it's, research, encyclopedias, whatever it is you want. But there are some books that just give you a better worldview. And we are reading Pat Buchanan's Where the Right Went Wrong, which is how neoconservatives, the people getting us into the war with Iran, which we're going to jump into, how they got control of the Republican Party. So how they control the entire country, right? So it's basically how Zionists and warmongers came together to create a unilateral platform to tie in Zionist Zionist imperialism and American interventionist imperialism, and how those came side by side and took over the world. And it's written in 2004, and there's the whole chapters that you would be reading right now with us, which is through chapter 3. It's only about 100 pages, so you can, if you want to read it now, download it, whatever you want. Join us on Sundays at 7 o'clock to kind of go through the book, and we're going to discuss it. One of the best things about this is like he's talking about their plan to go to Iran after they finish with Iraq, and how they're going to get in Iran and destroy the Ayatollah and get rid of it. He tells you what they're going to do. And so it's kind of a fitting time for the book. How do you get this? Take a picture of yourself reading the book, watching the first episode. We did a first intro episode. You can find it back on Sunday last week. You can see the book club has got a green border, and you can find and watch the whole intro to Buchanan, the book, the whole background. It's like an hour show. Sarah Stock was on it. And if you like Sarah Stock, she'll be on every Sunday. So she'll be on the book club talking about what's going on. So that's like, it's going to be kind of like a remote thing. And I really appreciate it. You guys being a part of the show. That one actually might be live this Sunday. I'm not sure. Just because of our traveling schedule, it might actually end up being live with what we're doing. However, send it to mike.mendoza@rifftv.com, and we'll do a raffle. And we'll be giving away possibly a Kindle every weekend for the first 4 times. So few $100 value. Honestly, it's just cool. You can grab that. It's new. It's waiting for you guys. So that's kind of like the giveaway. Anyway, let me move on, but let me just read a couple super chats. Real America Media Network sent $5. Let's go. He said, Elijah, your German painter mustache is elite. Thank you. And you're also looking jacked. You are truly fighting for the white race. NHH. God bless. Thank you. Thank you. By the way, I was like to my friends, like, why does someone keep thinking I'm a cop when I was out filming? And he's like, you look like a police officer. It's true. That's the mustache. Because they can't have the beards because, the seal, because of the gas mask, they all shave their beards, I don't know. That's actually true.
I forgot that, yeah.
Yeah, because you can't. But that's actually why I shaved it back down, because you can't have a beard. Homer J. Fuentes, oh my gosh. $50.
Let's go.
Wait, go over here. We got to get, Remember, you got to remove one article of clothing.
So I can just do the pants. I'll just take the pants.
Yeah,
off.
just take the pants. One article of clothing. Let's go. Let's get some music.
We'll get the stripper music going.
$50.
Dude,
He's a bodybuilder. That's the Trenbolin. Let's see what we're doing. This is like a homoerotic moment. Oh, wow. Joey Manarino in the chat. Wow. That's crazy. So that's good. By the way,
someone commented nipple-tastic.
I appreciate that. It's cold in here.
Also, Third Coast, Texas Toast, they got muted last night. Look, I'm not the mod. I appreciate the mods. I remember one time I made a comment about the mods and it created a mutiny in the mods. I love the mods. You guys are really fantastic, but I don't control the muting. If you ever want to be unmuted, send them an email to mike.mendoza@rifttv.com with your handle and let them know what happened, and you can always be unmuted. So it's just, we're just trying to not have people in the chat, like Mel K was on and it's like, get this Jew off the screen. And you're like, dude, come on, brother. Respect the guest, please. You know what I mean? Let's not say stuff like that. I'm just saying, let's just be respectful to people. It's this crazy thing that's called being nice and respectful to people. And Soul Explorer Coaching sent $5 said, is Anna a flight attendant? Why or why not? What the hell does that?
What does that even mean?
I don't know. I don't know what that means. I'm not going to make any more comments. That's all I know. Okay, let's just, we're going to go ahead and get into our top stories for the day. Let's talk about it with the Iran and Israel conflict, knowing that, guys, this is I'm sorry to say, but if this is you just wanted a segment of Name the Jew or whatever that's, you can watch Stu Peters. He's got a segment called that. We want to have a really important conversation about the geopolitical movement right now in the United States, the neocons, and what's going to be happening. And really what I want to focus on is all this lying and gaslighting from all of our colleagues in this, calling us all Qatari money and Qatarlson, for Tucker Carlson and everybody, no one's ever made any proof that anyone's getting money from Qatar. I have proof that people are getting money from Israel because I've been offered it and I've published the receipts. So that's true. But, we all know that's what's happening. You remember that stuff. You know exactly what's going on.
Oh, yeah.
Good old Mark. Are you allowed to talk about Mark Levin still?
I could talk about whoever I want.
Yeah. I won't talk about Glenn Beck ever in a poor way, despite my disagreement on this issue. Just to remind you, he totally offered to pay all my mom's medical bills as she was dying. Oh, wow. And it was hundreds of thousands of dollars. And he also personally paid for all of my legal bills from January 6th. And so it's like, hey, honestly, go enjoy being a citizen of Israel if you want. I hope you get it. You know what I mean? I hope you get it. I respect that.
I respect it.
I don't care if we disagree politically. I respect a man by his actions. So I love Glenn, and I have nothing ill to say of him. Anyway, let's get into our top stories. Astroworld documentary is out. We'll mention some stuff about that in a little bit. I want to get into what's going on here with Iran and Israel war. So in quite an interesting turn, we've seen a lot happen, right? We've been here, depending on who you listen to for shows and podcasts, if you're more of a Fuentes fan, he's a brilliant guy. He's a very talented individual. He knows his stuff, right? This guy knows his stuff. And, you probably have your opinions there, but maybe you're more of a normie, and you listen to Jack Posobiec or Charlie. You're still going to get a different idea than if you're listening to Mark Levin, because there's a split here, right? There's like a split. But I say Mark Levin is on the neocon side, but let's kind of define terms here. You have these neoconservatives, which believe that American strength comes through interventionism into imperialism by we're at a war of cultures, right? So we need to attack all of the countries that Netanyahu defined in this clean break, this idea of these fascist Islamo-terrorist regimes need to go down, and America will not be America until we take these down. That's Mark Levin. In the middle, you got Bannon, Kirk, Posobiec. They claim to like Israel. They've all been to Israel. They've been to the wall. I don't know if Posobiec has, but I know the other ones have.
Yeah.
They all really talk a lot about how much they support unlike Israel, but at the same time, everything they say counters Israel. It's like, I don't get that one. It's like, you support Israel, but everything, they're ruining our entire world. And then, of course, you have the Stu Peters and Nick Fuentes and those that would they're just very opposed, not even just to Israel, but really to Judaistic power, Jewish institutions.
Control,
Jewish control. So you got those sort of three groups. So we're going to kind of talk about all of them. Listen to this. Trump stated recently on Air Force One today, we'll start here, that he wants a real end instead of a ceasefire in this conflict with Iran. Check this out.
What specifically is better than a ceasefire? What are you looking for here?
An end, a real end, not a ceasefire. An end.
So something that would be permanent.
Yeah, or giving up entirely. That's okay too.
Are you close there? Is that possible in the next 24?
Why not? Certainly possible. Complete give up. That's possible. Yeah.
All right, so let's just jump. I mean, I gotta get everyone's opinion. We changed in the last 30 days. Remember, it was about a couple months, 45 days ago, something like that. Tulsi Gabbard, DNI, is it secretary or director? I don't know. Is it director of DNI or secretary? I have no idea. Okay, anyways, not that educated. But you have this director of national intelligence, right? Saying just a few months ago, we have no evidence that Iran has reinstated their nuclear program. They shut it down in 2023, and the Ayatollah has the mullah, or whatever they call him now. He has not agreed. So it's a director. Thanks. You can just say that stuff.
Okay.
If you're smarter than me, that's good. You should just, dude.
Prove it.
I was going to tell him because he's actually smarter than me, and he knows a lot of stuff, but he always tries to be nice and not undercut me on the show or make me look stupid. But it's okay. You can do that because I am kind of stupid in my own way. But thank you for that. So it's the director of national intelligence or whatever. But it's crazy that they said that, and then she put out some weird video. Did you see that cryptic video about how there's people
Towards
in
the
the
nuclear
United
bombs?
States government that want to cause a nuclear holocaust, and you got to be careful that we don't do that. So she's kind of almost leaking information, saying hey, there's no nuclear warfare, but somebody's going to try to start a nuclear war. And then all of a sudden, Israel attacks Iran. Trump obviously lies and says that he knew about it. And it was all, the negotiations, he was done with them. It was all secret. It's one of those things where someone does something and you're like, I knew about it the whole time. I knew how we we're going to do this. And then all of a sudden he's like, you now have the American military is deployed, by the way, into Israel. We are deployed there. I'm pretty sure we always have troops there, but we're deployed. We have 3 carrier groups headed over to the Red Sea. We have nuclear subs. I have a friend who is I'm not going to say, but yes, nuclear subs in the Mediterranean on lock. And we also have the American Air Force, including bomber squadrons, assuming B-2 probably, as well as fighter squadrons that are deployed and currently over the skies in Iran, because Iran does not apparently have capabilities to take down our jets. Okay, let's just start there. It's a lot to happen, right? So we kind of missed the mark here. We were gone. Trump wants a real end to this. I'm just going to start by saying that's a very scary statement because these nuclear facilities are a kilometer underground, or half a kilometer underground, meaning not even a bunker buster could take these out. My understanding is it'd have to be some sort of atomic or nuclear weapon that would have to be used to make that kind of impact. When he said evacuate the whole city, my question is, do we think that a nuclear weapon is on the table, or is that just fear-mongering? Because I don't know. What do you think?
Well, he's sort of a lame duck because he doesn't have to be reelected, so he can say whatever he wants. And I mean, it is his tactic to say outlandish, outrageous things because he's a crazy person. And then people go, okay, wait, we take it back. And then it was just sort of a bargaining chip. But then also, he does follow up with some of the things he says. Maybe not for Americans, like with mass deportations and no new wars and things like that. But for other countries, yeah, sure, he definitely follows his promises. With this war, though, we are looking at a very likely, at least a high potential likelihood for something bad to happen to a lot of innocent civilians. And I don't really care who you are, but killing women and children is wrong no matter what. You know what I mean? Like that's my stance. If you are taking the stance where you are fine obliterating women and children, then I have a problem with you. And that's sort of where we're at with this war, unfortunately, where it looks like, I mean, you had Operation Rising Lion, like 200 planes launching dozens and dozens of missiles all into cities, claiming I'm 23 years old. I grew up hearing that Iran almost had nukes. It's been 23 years of my life, and they've almost had nukes the whole time.
Yeah, Netanyahu's been saying that before even 1995.
Yeah.
He's been coming out. He's like, in 6 months, they're going to have nukes. In 5 months, they're going to have nukes. So this has just been an ongoing thing. Israel's been dying for us to go to war with Iran.
It's funny, right? Because global warming. I mean, Al Gore was like, well,
same
5
thing.
years,
Same
5 years,
tactic,
global warming is going to, the icebergs are going to shrink. And everyone was like, oh my gosh, global warming. And now all the conservatives are like, come on, give me a break. But they're still going, but we have to stop Iran because they're getting nukes. It's like, guys, please, like I said at the beginning of the show,
COVID
the tunnel vision.
too. Are you with us or against us? You'd be like, hey man, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not gonna say much, but it's like, I don't know if I want to get involved in all that. And they would go, oh, you're anti-science? You want your grandma to die? Oh, I didn't know you hated old people. And you'd be like, hey, I just want to know where this came from. And they'd be like, oh, so when did the Chinese hate happen? When did you start hating the little Asia, the xenophobia? No. I just, there's a lab there and it's got the same research and it came from there. Maybe it came from there. Oh, so now you're a conspiracy theorist and you don't believe the doctors and the experts. You're like, okay, what is going on here? When did, this is the same question. When did questioning science become anti-science? Wasn't that what science is? Literally the ability to retest, hypotheses. And then you had the same thing with this, where it's like, this is even worse than that scam, because it's like, someone opened up a diary from George Bush. That's what I said. I said I left in 2025 to LA and returned in 2003 back to Florida. They were like, there are weapons of mass destruction. This is an actual quote. If you were part of our book club, you would know this quote. To go into Iraq, they said, there's weapons of mass destruction. And he goes, is there any proof? And I don't know if it's Condoleezza Rice or if it was Rumsfeld or Pearl or one of these neocons, but he said, they go, when does he? They go, we don't know if he has nukes. And they go, when is he gonna have nukes? And he goes, 2 years, 3 years, tomorrow even? It's like, okay, so you don't know, dude. So what are you talking about? So remember, we went into Iraq to get the nukes, okay? Like, we went into Iraq to get nuclear weapons. Also, Pakistan has nuclear weapons. India has nuclear weapons. Israel has 200. Why does
supposedly?
Well,
they won't clarify.
Yeah.
Well, JFK is not alive partially because of that. But,
yeah, exactly.
But it's like, okay, like, dude, what is going on here?
Well, it's interesting to see where you hear this rhetoric from, because a lot of it is from Turning Point, for example. There was this girl, I don't know, she was some Jewish girl in Turning Point, and she tweeted out we just don't know. We could be 4 hours away from Iran launching their nukes. This is what we need to do, because this was in defense of Israel striking Tehran at the time, and it was just they've been saying that for years, you were saying. But I think what it speaks to is the fact that there are these media organizations on the right that exist to perpetuate that narrative and to feed into this whole fear-mongering campaign. And I think Turning Point's honestly one of them. And I think people like Jack Posobiec and Charlie Kirk. Jack Posobiec, by the way, has me blocked on Twitter.
Why? Okay, I know him well. What happened?
Well, during the whole Calendar Gate thing, I was against it, and he wouldn't let me speak in a space where I was actually brought up in. And he said, oh, I'm going to let everybody up and speak about it, whatever. And it's kind of a long story. But anyway, I was asking him why he didn't let me up. And I guess he didn't like being challenged on that issue. So anyway, he's got boomer politics anyway. So does Charlie Kirk. And that's kind of what they exist to do. They exist to toe the line, but they'll dip their toes in every once in a while to sort of the America first philosophy. And they'll say something very run of the mill, we can't let our troops go to Israel or something like that. Or, I don't even think they've gone that far.
Cut the funding. It's like the Matt Walsh cut the funding.
Exactly.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah. They'll just kind of dip their toe in just to make you think that they're still America first, but they don't want to upset the people who fund
Can I
them
ask you a
either.
real question here? Because this is
Yeah.
actually a real question. So you know these people personally. I know Jack. Jack's always been, really, really nice to me. And this is totally just your opinion. I want us to have disagreements on this show. What do you think's really going on here with like Jack and Charlie and stuff? Like, I want to know your real honest take on this. It's easy to ask people in media and politics to say more, right? But I always use an example of like, if you work at any company right now and you just like have a dumb comment on Facebook, you can get fired, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have strict rules that police what you can say or not. That doesn't change when you're in the information business, right? So if you're going to work for like Turning Point or something, you're not allowed to talk that negative about Israel. Real America's Voice, you cannot. You're working for Zionists, and that's the truth. And we've all had the talk. Okay, it's both spoken and unspoken.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows.
Yeah.
Whether your boss texts you or you get a text from your colleague, like, delete that. You know what I mean? They're so mad. Do you think we're too hard on them or not hard enough in terms of like, is it that they're working for these big Zionist organizations and even the risks they're taking are jeopardizing their entire life and they're doing a service by at least even trying to take a risk? Or are they like, do you think there's like a sellout where it's like they've sold out, but they're just like throwing a bone, like you're saying, so that you don't hold their feet to the fire and call them out? Like, what do you really think's going on there? Because this is a debate, right? Everyone's kind of got an opinion on this. And I know you've worked in here for a long time, so you know these people by name, you met them, you know who they are. What do you think? He's not a disingenuous person. Like, that he's got a family and kids and he's living a real life. He's not like some catfish. Or do you think that? Do you think it's fake? Do you think he's where's your mind at?
Well, to be clear, I don't think he's a bad person. I don't think any of these people are necessarily bad people. I think what it is they're not honest about what's going on. I think a lot of times they don't want to rock the boat. And I think that I don't necessarily think it's always a case of, oh, I'm funded by Zionists or I'm funded by Israel. I think what it is they want to maintain their audience of, many of them are older people who have money to give to them. And it's not necessarily this coordinated thing, or that complex rather. It's just that they don't want to lose audience members. And I think and I know for a fact that a lot of these networks that they air their content on would have a problem if they genuinely did push back and genuinely did push back against Zionism and Israel, because a large portion of their audience likes that and they're aware of that. And I also think they, meaning, of course, these more run-of-the-mill commentators or, quote, journalists, if you will. But again, it's not even like a personal thing. It's just like, it is kind of disingenuous and it is wrong to not admit something when you know that it's true. And I think a lot of times they do know it's true. They just don't want to push the envelope. And we need people who are going to push the envelope, who are going to be because Turning Point, for example, is a huge organization. They could have a real influence if they actually just admitted the truth. But they don't. And I think that's worth calling out.
It is dangerous. I mean, you can see when the war first started, when Israel bombed Iran in Operation Rising Lion, you could see what Charlie did. He goes, what do you think about this? Like, that was kind of dipping his toe in the water, getting engaged. But there are people who genuinely believe this. And so there are some people who I'm sure are smart enough to know. They figured it out. Mm-hmm. And they don't want to rock the boat. Like you said, they don't want to lose their potential funding. There are other people who just don't put two and two together. I mean, Charlie practices resting on the Sabbath. Like, he is a Torah observant Christian, which is an oxymoron.
Right.
I know a buddy of mine is a Seventh-day Adventist. They do it on Saturday because nothing changed. It's like, no. The whole idea is it changed. But there are people who genuinely have this misconception implemented so deep into their mind that they can't fathom anything else. And so when something like this does happen, with the war starting or potentially starting, and they want to figure out what to do, they don't want to rock the boat because they see that there is sort of this shift towards one way, but they can't necessarily understand why. I mean, Charlie is smart enough to understand when dozens of people come up to him at different college campuses and all ask the same or similar questions, to realize that there is a generational shift. That's why Turning Point became so popular, because he was able to follow and then produce the content and give the younger generation what they wanted. Now the younger generation's all grown up and the next generation that's in college is taking over. Charlie can't figure out what the hell they want. And so he is now asking these questions like, well, should we be involved in? Should we? He's gauging because he's seeing how he should act. But there are people who are completely disingenuous disingenuous. I don't think that half of them are. I think that they're just so ingrained in their minds that, oh, well, this is just naturally good because that's what everyone's told me for so long. I mean, I used to be there with certain societal issues where it was like, this is how I was raised and this is how history was and this is how the world works. And then you learn, and your ability to adapt demonstrates just how much critical thinking you are capable of. And so I would say a lot of these people just don't have the level of critical thinking necessary. Their brain can't, it's like the frontal lobe just...
It's an IQ gate.
Yeah.
Like you have to be able to think critically and think independently rather than just, going along with the crowd. And yeah, I think for so long, Zionism was just so deeply ingrained in the political right that people have a hard time separating the two. And these are people that have been involved in it for a while, to be fair, like, Charlie and Jack, like these are people who've been in the game. They're, millennials. So they're, I'm older Gen Z, but like I can see why if that's been a part of your political career for so long, it would be hard for you to separate from that. I just wish we had more honesty, and I wish it wasn't so much about making money, because we all know that a lot of these people, it's what they do for a living, and they're going to try and get as much money out of it as they can. And if that means not upsetting a certain group of people or maintaining a certain demographic of audience, they're going to do it.
So much money too.
It's so much.
I think majority of them are
So much
disingenuous,
money.
personally. I think that a lot of the people that are in these organizations know exactly what's going on. If you open your eyes enough and start to look around, you'll actually see it. Eventually, it's hard. They say you won't stop noticing everything that's going on. What we did is we escaped mainstream media because we no longer wanted to believe all the crap that they were trying to promote, all this propaganda, all the Mockingbird effect on us. But then you still have people who are in like Turning Point and these other places. They're just doing the same thing. They're just tricking us that this is an organization that we can feel safe with. We can listen to their points, and they're always going to guide us in the right direction. But a lot of times they're just following whatever talking points they're told, so this way they can collect money. You see a lot of that on Twitter. They're collecting that X money. So what they're going to do is they're going to continue to lie, so this way they can get the X money, just like what we had with the H-1B.
Yeah, it's like when they do all those what do you notice videos and they just get the money.
Yeah, so I think that a majority of these people, I could tell you, like even now, just working in the industry that for this couple of years that I've been in it now, and you can see firsthand the influence that the Israeli government has on these people. And for someone to say that they have no idea that's going on, I don't find that to be true at all.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's no idea. I think there is a level of ignorance that has to go into it where they're willing to just ignore it all. Right, which is super disingenuous. And then there are some actors who just don't have enough critical thinking to actually process what's going on. Because there are some people who aren't getting paid. They're just dumb. I mean, look at half of the boomers. They're not getting paid by Israel to support the war, and yet they're all calling for it. So there are people who are brainwashed to the point where AIPAC isn't sending, some 50-year-old in Kentucky a check, but he's still calling
the public for sure.
Well,
versus like the media organizations, definitely the public, it falls into that category where it's like they're kind of going along with it. But as far as media organizations go, they're definitely aware.
That's what I think. I think media, they're well aware. The reason you have boomers and everybody else who fall for this kind of propaganda is just because the school systems have been polluted. We're taught a false history. Everything that we learn about World War II is pretty much a lie. Majority of the stuff that we've gathered from it. So what you have is us all growing up generation after generation hearing things that, are not true, but because, our father spoke it or somebody before them said it, then we just believe it and we follow it full, without question, telling us that the war in World War II started just because everybody didn't have blonde hair and blue eyes. I mean, there's so many different propaganda quotes.
You wanted to kill all the non-whites.
Yeah.
Like, that's not, that didn't happen.
And what we're doing, what's happened is we're taught, even with the Bible, we're tricked there. They're not God's chosen people. You got to choose Christ, but that comes down to the Schofield Bible. So, I believe that, yes, if you're outside of the media world, unfortunately, like as you mentioned previously in the conversation, saying that, the American people, we only have a certain amount of attention span. We'll watch something for a little bit. We'll get all riled up. Somebody needs to do something about it. Then next thing you know, we turn on another television show and we no longer care. But when you're actually in the media world, you see firsthand every single time. I mean, and it's so hard not to notice all the corruption. It's so hard not to notice how we are being controlled by a foreign organization, foreign country. I mean, and anybody who sits here and says that, that's not the case, not saying you, but I'm saying these people on X, they're just lying to us. They just want to collect the money and they want to make sure that they keep that number 1 spot. That's why here, at Rift TV, we have it's harder for us to come up is because of the fact we're not going to sit around. We're not going to collect money from the foreign entities and just do what they want. We're going to speak truth unapologetically. And that's why, it's very important that we keep this organization going, because unfortunately you see time and time again, all these other groups, they're just bought and sold.
They don't want us to succeed. And I think people don't realize this is that, I was talking to an individual who works in Con Inc. still. And we were talking in LA after the riot, and he was telling me, he works with Daily Wire, Blaze, blah blah. Still works with people, works with Prager and different people, and was just saying like, dude, it's kind of crazy, is that this thing that you're starting here, Rift, the people I talked to, like, it's no one's had a positive thing to say about it. Like he goes, there's like they act like it, like when I mention it because like he's interested in working here too. So he's like, I've brought it up. What do you think about this project that they're working on? What's going on? Now everyone knows we've been really transparent why we're doing it, what we're doing it for, the need for the disingenuous nature of the right wing media, the fact that there is no middle ground. You basically just get like a lot of like hardline far right stuff or like really sold out stuff, and there's nothing that's kind of like helping people see, taking them on the journey, right? Because even Slightly Offensive was just like a little too crass. It was like, hey, let's get a little more heavy on the meat, but not that kind of meat. We're not, when we say beef, we mean actual, healthy protein. Where Slightly Offensive meant something else. So the point is it's like, I go, what do you mean? What do you mean negative stuff? He's like, oh, well, this person is like the director here is like, I mentioned it to them and they basically laughed and like made fun of you, like how you're just like how cute it is what you're trying to do. And like, you actually think you can compete. And I was like, yeah, well, I'm not trying to compete with them because they're lame. Like, they're lame. I don't want to compete with lame people. I'm trying to do my own thing. Another person, they were saying, how they literally claimed that we're getting money from Qatar. This is like not a joke, Mike, by the way, that another organization, I won't say who it is, but there's a really annoying guy that talks like this, but a powerful person there was explaining how, he knows we're getting money from Qatar. And it's like, so instead of just like going like, hey, that's kind of cool. Maybe we could have these guys on our show. Maybe we could reach these people. Maybe we can team up. They've already decided, the counting people, that they don't want anything to do with us, However, we did make an agreement with Fox News, which is pretty cool. And we got an agreement now that we've set with Gateway Pundit, and people are open. Some people are open going, hey, maybe we shouldn't write you guys off entirely. Maybe you guys have a point. But this snarkiness or whatever that's called, this elitism that they have. And I like elitism a little bit, but that's a side note. But it's like this feeling that they're better than everyone and that there's nobody else that can compete with them. I think they're going to get their asses handed to them long term. Even if this project fails, I don't care. It was worth the journey to try to make it, like, to try to do this was worth it. And if we have to try again and again, I'm not going to give up, because everyone laughs like, oh, you're going to have a network that is, is monetized, it competes, but is also not going to be sold out to the Zionists. Good luck. Everyone tells me good luck, right? That's not possible. Good luck. And it's like, hey, people also told that to Fox News. Having a right-wing, 24-hour news channel was stupid, and they're doing pretty damn well. I think I saw they have like a $1.2 billion revenue right now. Crazy, right? Just from like cable. That's for news, by the way. It's not even including like, spinoffs and stuff of what they're doing. It's just news shows in shitty studios. It's like actually crazy. People laugh about everybody that what they're doing. And that's why for me, I see the long game here. I care about you guys, and I want to make sure that we let people know, like, I think Tucker's doing a pretty good job, kind of the same thing, being sort of honest. But even then, he's got to get more honest. So my opinion on these people is like this. Look, I'm not going to attack anyone directly, but it is so much money they're making. Like, people have no idea. Like, an average one of these podcasters that runs, I'll just tell you, I have a friend who runs like a small team, and they're getting $20,000 per ad read on the show 5 days a week. They have about 4 per day. So they're making about $80,000 a day on ad reads. So, you multiply that, and then with speaking and everything, they're bringing in like, probably between like $7 to $11 million a year just running a right-wing podcast personally, right? So that's a lot of fucking money.
Yeah.
I just want to remind people, that's a lot of money. And it's like, do I really want to name the Jew and give up $11 million? What I want to know is why don't more people save up their money and then start their own thing like this? I would get it if it's like, hey, I worked there for 5 years, saved up $50 million. Now I've started my own network and we're going to get busy. If you have a plan, right? The same way you might, there's no shame in any job, but you, as a man, there is shame if you never move up, right? So there's shame if you never get better and raises, and you can't just, there's no shame in mopping a floor. but you don't stay there. So if you're for years and years and years staying in these companies and you're not saying more truth and you're not moving in a direction where you're positioning yourself, that's like, I spent the last couple of years saving up, trying to get this started or whatever. We're going to launch in 2 years, but God brought some investors, so we're able to start it early. And I still think this is premature. I still think the public isn't ready for this. I don't think the market is there. I think we have to build the market. This is a tough fucking job. But I will say, when you have Mike Mendoza around, ladies and gentlemen, it's all possible. Let's give him
a round of applause. I want to touch back really quick to clarify, because I agree with everything you said. And I don't want it to sound like I was defending. I
think you're defending.
When I'm saying, okay, good. Because I was thinking about, I was like, hold on. I don't want to sound like I'm defending these people, because I do honestly despise the Antichrist. Just like anyone else watching this should. I hate the Antichrist and everything he stands for, which is the destruction of God's people, the true Israel, which everyone online has been just killing me over. I've gotten into so many debates, even with close friends, who are like, it's not, you're cursing the Israel of the Bible. And I was like, the Israel of the Bible didn't exist in 1948. No. That's not how that works. But I agree. And all these people, it is so hard to turn down obscene amounts of money and look away. And people with lacking morals are willing to do it.
Even with morals, listen, this is why I want to give people credit. And I'm not saying about the guys we're talking about. I'm just saying, look, do you know what women do for a little bit of money on OnlyFans? Yeah. They take pictures of their buttholes, and, it probably looks nice. So congratulations. No, but I'm just saying, whatever. I hope you'd enjoy that. Somebody's going to buy that. Henny, I wouldn't suggest you going down that road. You're a nice looking guy, but I don't want to, no one wants to see that.
It's not for you.
It's not for you. No, so it's like, that's like literally think about this in your mind, like with adult content. You take a camera and you shine it at your butthole. Not only do you take the picture, you put it on the internet. That's what people are doing for a little bit of money, and it's normalized. And that's like for the promise of like a couple $100,000 a year if you're successful. Like making millions of dollars a year, people like, I obviously know people murder people over shoes. Money corrupts. One thing I've noticed about myself is that money does corrupt. It makes it I've never like I used to. Yeah, I remember I got lost in the money game at Blaze. I did. I just lost my soul. Like I lost it. I started making money. Life started being really good. Started being able to do whatever the hell I wanted. I was able to get a massive house to do all this stuff. And I like lost my spiritual balance. I lost sight of who I was. And then I lost it all. And then I realized, shoot, you can't focus on money. Like money is the love of it is the root of all kinds of evil. And when you love money, you cannot serve God and money. The Bible says with mammon, you cannot serve both. You can only serve one master, right? And so part of me thinks, and I want people to know this, that the amount of freaking money at the top of right-wing media, like the top 1%, is bloody insane. You have no idea how much money these people have. And if you actually look at all these companies, including Rav, which, by the way, I like Real America's Voice. This is not a thing. Including Blaze, including Daily Wire. They are run by donors who are ideologically driven, and they reward you for staying aligned with their ideology.
Yep.
And it is not a for-profit business, as much as they will always say and whatever. It is, yes, it is like for Ben, it's for profit because his show gets views and he individually gets this stuff. But the companies still run on donor money. They're owned by these big families, like the DeVos family or whatever. They sell to them. And why do these billionaires own these people? Why do they own them? It's because the media is about controlling you. It's the think tanks, like the same reason why they start think tanks. Why would I start a think tank? Why would I start the Manhattan Institute or Heritage Foundation? Or why would I go CIA or any of these things? Why would I do this? It's because I want to control people, and I'm going to let them know, this is a good job at my think tank. I'm paying you $230,000 to essentially go on Fox News shows. All those contributors you see, all the guests, they're from the think tanks that are owned by the billionaires. And then what do? Buy the networks, buy them out, curate the hosts, and make sure if you fall out of line. Tucker was at the height of his career. And what did he just say? He was criticizing Zelensky. Zelensky was friends for some reason with the owners of Fox. So somehow they cut him because he was critical of the Ukraine war. If you do not fall in line, you're toast. And that's not just that. It is millions and millions and millions of dollars. Yeah, at our level, You don't make anything like that. If you guys think we're like making a ton of money, it's totally not true.
So keep donating. Send super chats.
No,
please.
it's like that's totally
That's
not
why you
true.
don't pay us. You don't want us to get corrupt.
Correct.
It's for your benefit.
Yeah, now I know why. I was wondering. I'm like, there has to be a reason.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep you humble. All I'm saying is like I do just believe like good-hearted people like Matt, who I know personally, who I know is a more moral man than I am. He's, like in terms of like the flesh, one moral thing that's really hard. You may not cheat, you may not steal, you may not lie, you may not hang around with those who do. But also, the love of money is a sin. And a lot of people love that money and they're willing to not tell the truth because because that's what did Matt say? So I think he said famously, above all else, he's a capitalist.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's what I think it is. I think it's just the love of money.
I agree. I mean, I think that's the root of a lot of the problems here. Like we were talking about earlier, how, this country has become, multicultural corporation, essentially. It's just about making money. And that's why things are so expensive and people can't live the way they should be able to live. And, simultaneously, it's the same reason why a lot of these people sell out to Israel. A lot of them sell out to the Zionist movement. I wish that they would, to your point, maybe make money for 5 years, make a lot of money, and then put it towards the actual cause they want to put it toward. That would be actually pretty respectable, even though they had to maybe sell out for 5 years. At least they were kind of banking that money for a bigger purpose, but they don't do that. And, it's easier to just sit back and say, well, I'm making all this money, so I'm going to keep going. And honestly, I think that's why we need something like Rift TV, and we need sort of another, truth-telling, not just truth-telling organization, but one that doesn't, seek to, you're not gonna sell out to anyone in that regard. And I think that's really hard to do, but it's important because otherwise there's going to be no free speech. And, these companies that are like that, they wind up a lot of times not existing for very long anyway. So,
Turning Point, Donor Rand. And by the way, it's not just a 501c3, it's a 501c4 as well. Turning Point Action. PragerU, just completely donor run. I'm not legally allowed to talk about Blaze TV's money. Daily Wire, for profit, but also donor run as well. Look what they did to Candace. Look what they did to Brett.
Mm-hmm.
You get in the line of the ideology, you're out. Fox still has money. OAN. I think Newsmax is publicly traded, though. I think it's run by public investment. I know they have big investors, so they got a bunch of money up front. And every one of these companies started with like $4 or $5 million investments. And so, look, I'm just going to say this. This entire thing is funded by Mike Mendoza of the Mendoza Report subscriptions. Mike Mendoza Report subscriptions? No, but I mean, genuinely, all I'm trying to say is, hey, guys out there, to you guys that are out there, to Matt, to the rest of you guys, do something for your people, for your Westerners, break away from this Zionist stronghold, these people who are helping you not be as effective as you could be. You don't have to go spurg out. You don't have to become some anti-Semite and go, talk about the Holocaust every day. You don't have to do stuff like that.
You don't have to say NHH, I mean.
Yeah, you don't have to say NHH. You don't have to go do that. Like, you don't have to go do something stupid. But what you could do is you could set a new standard in this industry. Like, hey, we're not asking people. You can support Israel, my company, if you want to. I'm fine with that. I don't, but that's fine too. And what if we were more of like, hey, what if we were truth-led and we had debates and we could actually discuss and try to understand what's going on around the country? Although I don't think anyone in this company does support Israel. I'll be completely honest. I don't really get that from anybody.
You picked good employees.
Yeah, I was like, I don't think anyone does. I don't think anyone would want to work for me. I don't think any Zionist would want to work here.
I don't think so.
It wouldn't be great. But anyways, all I was going to say is we're not going to fire you for your views. And I really, really think that these guys, something's got to change because it's true. If you're not telling the truth and you're justifying it and making excuses for not being real, again, you can say the truth in love or intelligently. Like, you don't have to just go spur. You can like say we talk about the reality here. It's said intelligently and in a way that's like palatable, but we're telling the full truth here all the time. It's like, can't they do that? Do you know what I'm talking about? All the grifters your age, they fucking suck. Sorry, I shouldn't be cursing, but
They do.
all the influencers that are your age are horrible. They will literally say anything. I will watch their tweets and stuff because I'll get offered the same money. They won't even like chat GPT change it. They'll copy and paste what they're told to say.
They won't even
That's
offer me
crazy.
money to post.
Really?
Like, I don't get paid for any of this. I'm just tanking my future career by being super racist and homophobic for free, man. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Give me some Qatari money. Like, hey, I just want some guy from Dubai to reach out and be like,
true.
I know, he's like, hey, $10,000 right now to tweet something homophobic. I'd be like, dude, I just did it 5 minutes ago. Can I just get paid for that one? Like, I want to say though, I want to touch what you're saying.
Meanwhile, I'm still like a paid lobbyist. It's like, I don't know how it makes sense, but
yeah,
I still am.
I want to mention to the commentators who are also, not speaking out that X is like the free speech platform, right? You can almost say whatever you want, sort of, and you're good. You're getting these comments from big accounts going, where did all of this anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism come in, and why are people so against it? Because you gave them free speech. You should realize that there's a shift. The trends are changing. And so if you're one of these commentators who's bought out by the Zionist money, if you don't change, people will remember that. And if you change too late, they will certainly remember that. And then you'll lose everything. And so there are people who are taking the money right now, refusing to acknowledge what's going on. And they're just saying their talking points. Like you said, they're just copy pasting. There's no originality, not even willing to take out a few words and replace them with synonyms even to avoid plagiarism. Those people, when the times do change, and let's be real, they are very soon. I predict by the next presidential election is when we'll have a large shift in Gen Z specifically. If you are not willing to change now, by the time the next election comes along, you will lose a lot of your base because Gen Z just will tune you out. They'll go, we'll find someone else who will listen to us.
No, yeah. And by the way, if anyone says that like everybody loves money and there's nothing wrong with that, and I think that's also one of the funny things too, is like, that's why I hate even like the also people that are like, I don't care about money. I do this for my country. And it's like, dude, you ever seen how money corrupts? Go look at pastors.
Oh my gosh.
But it's not a joke.
Mega churches, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't get me started.
Dude, go find Prophets and Watches, my favorite account on Instagram. I also like pastors with props. The evangelical church is quite entertaining and amusing. I think it's always a bit funny. I wish the evangelical church wasn't so feminine and gay. I wish it was more focused on God because it's so used to that. But I do appreciate, where it's at. By the way, Homer J. Fuentes in the chat, $50. Dude, he's got to do it. Somebody text Manarino.
I don't know if I can get shirtless here.
Somebody text Manarino.
Just like, I'll do this. I'll do
oh
this.
my gosh.
Or
Holy.
does that count? Is that sufficient?
Holy. That's crazy. I thought Anna would be sweating, but
so do I get that donation now? Is that how that works?
Yeah. Every time I put people on blast for like jokes, like flirting jokes and like that, everyone always gets mad at me at the end. So now I can't do opposite sex flirting jokes on the show. It has to be the same sex, which is kind of gay, but also very Republican.
We're wearing I know, right? Grinder's gonna crash in just
it's a
few
very
minutes.
Republican thing, Yeah, but he said, I just got my cut from the Tucker Carlson. Here's a little dough. Let's go. And I think there was also another one up here. Shout out Homer J. Fuentes. Ruger said, if you $5 for an air horn there. If you want a school in Florida and many other states, your McGraw-Hill textbooks were literally owned by Robert Maxwell.
Yeah.
Says a lot about propaganda.
His printing company's name was Pergamon Press, which Pergamon is the seat of the devil in the book of Revelation. That was Robert Maxwell's printing house.
Yeah, do you know also, that is a really good information. I mean, I guess we're kind of heading towards the end of the show here, but these topics, I like to go a little long on shows like this because these topics are actually interesting. Like sometimes we do just produce shows because life is boring and we want to be reliable and be here, except for yesterday. But for the most part, what I'm saying is we want to talk about this, and this is very interesting because we didn't even get to talk about it, but we'll be back tomorrow night, and I'm sure. Last time I checked, Iran and Israel will not be at peace tomorrow. So we do need to follow the Bible. The Bible does say to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. The Bible doesn't say pray for Israel, okay? Yeah. It doesn't say to pray for Israel. And also with blessing his people, he means his church now. We are his people. It's not blessing people who are Ashkenazi Jews. We are the blessing. There's now neither Jew nor Greek nor Gentile. We're all one in Christ. So those who are in Christ are his people, okay? We are in the Lord. And a lot of people in the media that are Christians that try to argue against that, it's because of the same reason. They just want a job, okay? They don't know. They don't theologically believe any of this stuff. They just want a job. I know that for a fact. Shout out to the American Jewish Coalition for inviting me to your Shabbat dinner at CPAC. That was
By your handler that you had.
Wait, did you go?
By my APAC handler that followed me everywhere.
Wow.
He had a handler.
I had a handler. I had a Jewish handler.
They
at
never
CPAC.
gave me one of those. I guess. Yeah. I don't
They
know.
still think they can turn me because my wife being Jewish. So that's that's why. Yeah, exactly. That's crazy. So they still think that.
What a way to
She was
end
like,
it.
please stop telling people that. She's actually upset about it. All right. It's like, it's just gone on for so long. I have to keep saying
That's
it.
so
You know what I
funny.
mean?
Yeah, you got to keep going with
Yeah.
the joke. Yeah.
A joke? Come on. We got the 8th day, the rabbi was there. Like, okay, anyway. That being said, I want to talk about one more thing here that I think is like really important that I think we haven't talked about. And I want to get into one more story because we are going a little long, but it's worth it. Trump believes Iran has a nuke. We know that. Let me go down here just a little bit. This is actually kind of crazy. So in defense of Jack Posobiec, in defense of these people, we are seeing a 2003 all over again. I think I might have to keep this small, right? Because we'll get probably a copyright here from the Comedy Central. Jon Stewart's back on TV. What's Jon Stewart's last name? Was it Irish? Stewart Irish?
I didn't even know he left.
Yeah, but you know his original name is what? What's his original name? Jon Stewart. Can we get an early life check on this guy for a second?
Do we need one? Do we already know?
Well, I know his last name's not Stewart. I know he changed his last name.
Oh, it's like Mark Cuban being,
Jonathan Stewart Leibowitz?
Yeah,
Leibowitz.
Jonathan
Leibowitz.
Leibowitz.
Everystein. What's it? Everystein, Singleberg, Timowitz.
Yes.
Is that it?
So he actually came out, talking about this. Listen to this.
Iran is so dangerous. Weeks away from having the fissile material for an entire arsenal of nuclear bombs.
Holy shit, that's why. Iran's only weeks away from having an entire arsenal of nuclear bombs, says Netanyahu. In 2015. 2015. Think about that. Back when we all thought, oh no, the Republicans might nominate that madman Jeb Bush. Should have gone with the question mark. No, seriously, I'm not being facetious. I really want to know why we had to bomb Iran now.
We're going to show you Iran's secret nuclear files. Here's the warhead. Here's the bomb.
And that's from 2018. I don't know if Iran is any closer to having a bomb, but it is clear Israel now has the capacity to enrich their drawings. Netanyahu, I swear to God, Netanyahu talks about Iran getting nukes the way I talk about the Knicks winning a title.
This is the year. The Knicks are one piece away. Weeks away from winning a title. But they never win.
Even when
great.
Jon Stewart, by the way, he was attacking Jack Posobiec and them today for being against the war. He even knows, despite him having to push the war and support Israel because it's Comedy Central, Viacom, I think, right? I don't know if they still own it, but he's still like, dude, this is actually bullshit.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, even he's like, hey, this is actually stupid. And I don't know why Trump supporters are supporting this as if they're actually getting nukes. And you know what? I'm going to laugh. If I'm wrong and they have like a nuke and they drop it, I still wouldn't even believe that. Look, if Jon Stewart is so above it all and legit, why did he change his last name from Jonathan Leibowitz? He should be proud of his heritage. Damn, Trump was crazy, wild and back in the day.
That's true.
What were you going to say?
Well, it's like the boy who cried wolf. Like, if it were really true, like, I would be shocked, but it's probably not, with the whole nuke thing.
I just
He's running
hope
the
that
Iraq playbook again. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
He's like, it worked then. We'll do it again. Let's just do a throwback.
Yeah,
So,
I just hope that both sides have fun. That's it. Everyone play fair.
We want both sides to win. I hope Iran and Israel win the war.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Total, complete destruction of both countries. Let's go. Let's get a round of applause for that. I'm totally joking. It's a joke. It's a joke.
Oh, whoops.
Roe Rugger said $5 said if you went to school in Florida. Okay, we already got that one. I had one down here as well. Homer J. Fuentes, blah, blah, blah. Okay, no, there was another one. Okay, speaking of that, in the chat, one of the most important things that we need to talk about here, and I need to go down, give me one moment. Randy Fine, okay? Randy Fine is the apex of morbid obesity, okay? He has no jawline, and he is from Florida, from here, a senator. I always get confused. Is he really a senator here?
Yeah, he's a congressman.
That's just...
He lost his first election because Preston, actually some people with his nomination ended up, there were problems basically because there were some rumors about him that ended up, I don't know if they ended up being true or not. But
what were they?
It cost him, I don't remember. I just remember they were enough.
He stole the last cookie in the cookie jar?
Trump. It's possible. It's possible. I think the rumor was he couldn't see his thing when he went to the bathroom. But that was enough for Trump to pull his nomination the first time around, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, he had to lose weight. But here he is. Listen to this.
I know you were well aware of Iran's influence on, groups, terrorist organizations like Hamas and Hezbollah. In an interview, though, last month, you said this when asked about how to treat Gaza.
In World War II, we did not negotiate a surrender with the Nazis. We did not negotiate a surrender with the Japanese. We nuked the Japanese twice in order to get unconditional surrender. That needs to be the same here. There is something deeply, deeply wrong with this culture, and it needs to be defeated.
Did you really mean to say that the U.S. should use nuclear weapons against a people because there's something wrong with their culture?
Of course not. What I was saying is that we didn't negotiate with evil in World War II. We defeated the Germans. We defeated the Japanese using any means that were necessary. And the same needs to be done in Gaza. Nuking Gaza would be a terrible idea. The fallout would drift into Israel. It would kill the hostages. The point that I was making was...
But you're not worried about it killing, for example, women and children in Gaza who, the innocents?
I think war is a messy thing, and I think that when you defeat evil, you have to do what is necessary to do it. Israel cannot live next to a country that a huge percentage of the people wish to destroy.
Wouldn't it be crazy? So they can't live next to people. What if they didn't have to? Like, what if there was a time when it didn't exist and they could have lived anywhere in the world and they chose to live right in the middle of all of their enemies because a few thousand years ago they were told it was theirs? You know what I mean? Wouldn't it have been crazy?
Like if bankers helped pay for it and brought them over there, and
because of
they
World War
intentionally
I.
moved there. What if they intentionally? What if these psychopaths? I know they didn't, but what if they intentionally moved next to their enemies? That would be crazy.
Well, what if the end of World War I was in sight and it was looking like it would be clean, and then all of a sudden everything ramps up and it leads to German starvation, where Churchill implements a blockade that kills 140,000 women and children. Because of, Churchill's blunder during World War I, hypothetically speaking, because Churchill had funding from certain families. And so it ends up in this contract that if the war continues on, then the state can be founded a couple years later. And then all of a sudden you have this massive war again, where all these bad guys do these bad things. And they were so bad that after the war, we took all of their scientists. They were so terrible and inhumane that we decided, come work for us in the U.S. government. That's what we should be doing. We, hypothetically, we did nuke Japan, hypothetically speaking, but realistically, we did nuke Japan, even though they were already on the verge of surrender. I mean, we had a cruise ship that was dedicated just to producing ice cream for soldiers. Japanese morale was low. Let's be real. We didn't need the nukes. They were already done for. But
I think so too, considering how quickly their country flipped and became allies. It didn't seem like they wanted to resist any longer. And, that empire collapsed. All the empires collapsed, and we lost what little we had left after the Bolsheviks killed the Romanovs, and we lost the Christian monarchy. We sacrificed the British Empire and white dominance in the world. And now what's important is it used to be our culture. Do you know what's crazy? What we used to impose through colonialism and imperialism was our culture, right? We would civilize the area. We would bring our religion. We wouldn't go to war sustained, and we would build a civilization for ourselves, basically, and see if we could civilize the world. And then we would extract resources. now these interventionists, and I know, guys, I just want to say, reminding you to win this, join our book club Sundays at 7 p.m. on this channel. And also follow our new YouTube channel. I'll have an announcement at the end about an event. I'm going to be at an event on Saturday here in Florida near Orlando if you want to hang out and meet and whatever. There's already a few hundred people registered. So you can check it out. It's called Bohemian Grove. Brohemian, not Bohemian. It's a joke, okay? I still don't know why it's called that, but there's a little bit of child sacrifice in the beginning. I've heard it's very minor. No pun intended. But no, but it's called Bohemian Grove. Sam Tripoli, Owen Benjamin. Basically, I was like, is this what they think I am? Like some like nut job? Because I'm like on stage with a bunch of like kooky Tucker Carlson types. No, I'm just kidding. These guys are all fucking cool. I love these guys. They're all really neat. And Top Lobster, all the guys are going to be there. So check it out. It's conspiracy, comedy, chaos. And then we're going to be doing like a live panel of the Rift live on stage. So try to get Anna to go, but it'd be really cool if you want to go too. I don't know, you're gone, right, this weekend?
I think I'm out of town.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna go do a live Rift panel at this event. So if you want to meet us and hang out, that's cool. And maybe I'll buy you a drink or offer to buy you a drink, and then you'll make a video, and then someone will say that you're a child, even though you're 25, and say that that I was working with Ollie Alexander to rape you or something. You know what I mean? That'd be crazy if that happened. Hypothetically, that could happen too. You're like 25 and now you're a child. So anyway, that being said, getting back to this with the World War II stuff, it's like, and now when you really see with our book that what it's explaining is that like, interventionism is not colonialism. Interventionism is showing force. It's the idea of a display of force and also a destruction of their culture. So you're not like trying to convert them to yours. You're trying to destroy them and then reconstruct them, right? And you cannot change these people. Look at the buildings from the colonial era when we left. They dilapidated and they fell apart. Look at Rhodesia, right? Rhodesia did not survive. South Africa is not surviving. You cannot change these nations. Also, Iran is not like retarded Muslim people. Persians are not retarded. They have an average IQ of 104, okay? I'm just saying, there's 10 million people in a city. Have you ever seen Persia? It's not that bad. Yeah, it is Muslim extremists running it, but it, recently was just a civil, democratic, Western type country.
Go back 50 years.
Look at Persians now in LA. They're cool. Okay. These are not crazy Arabic people. So I'm just gonna say this is not a war we want to fight. This is not a good situation, and also this interventionism is what's evil. And the reason why it's evil is because what it is it's tied in American interventionism with Zionist Greater Israel ideology, and it says they're one thing. So now America, the way that we're great, according to these people, and they all are in power, the reason why we're great is because we're helping Israel create Greater Israel, and we're taking down their enemies, and we're fighting against the savages. Like that guy said, we're nuking the savages. The only bad part about killing, Muslims is that the fallout could hurt Jews. And that's an American senator saying that. That's what they all believe. That's what they all think. And that is scary because now our money, our strength, our economy are being used for one purpose and one purpose alone, and that is to make Israel great again. And Trump believes it too. So it's hard. It's true.
Well, that's why people think it's so inflammatory to say, well, we don't want so many Jews in power, but it's not like you're not being anti-Semitic when you say that. It's that it's disproportionate to the actual demographics of the United States, because Randy Fine isn't representing most Americans' interests when he speaks on that issue, and he says, the real issue here is that we might hit some Jews, or we might, no, what you're advocating for essentially, and he won't say it, is genocide of an entire population. And I would argue that most Americans, if it was presented accurately that way, would not support that, because that is not in America's best interest. That is just simply not America first in any way. And they'll tell you it is, but it's not. And it just really speaks to this problem where there are people in power in this country who are making decisions, who are helping to pass laws that are not working in the interest of Americans, of white people, which is still the majority of this country. Unfortunately, that's changing, of course, forcefully so. That's not organic at all, and that's the main problem. But it still is our country. It's still America, and it shouldn't be our problem, but they'll twist themselves into pretzels to justify their actions for what is effectively genocide.
Well, yeah, and then they'll turn us and say, well, these people are the ones who would have supported Germany and they would have helped and done this. So like they're showing photos of people protesting America getting involved in World War II and protesting the Korean War, the Vietnam War, going, well, these are the same people, but they're not. Right, because the enemy is completely different. The enemy history is written by the victors. And so we won't ever get the entire truth of the story because the people who lost didn't get to tell it. I mean, even General Patton, who's hailed as one of the best American generals or generals in the entire history of the world, says that we defeated the wrong enemy because we didn't continue our conquest into Russia. Instead, we let the Bolshevik Zionists sit on the Nuremberg trials and judge after they had just killed 60 million people, mostly Christian. I mean, there was I just opened Twitter, X, whatever. There was a post from Senate Republicans that said 88% of Republicans support missiles to Iran.
Yeah, I saw it too. I was like,
did you not look at any of the polls that any political commentator did? I mean, Charlie Kirk, what's his face? The golden boy of conservative Inc. All of the political commentators did do you support getting involved in this war? It was like 80 to 90% no, 10% yes. And so they just flipped the number and they posted it as if it's going to do anything. And then conservatives will go and point at liberals and go like, you're just lying about the stats, as if they're not doing the exact same thing. But by demonizing the people who don't want to get involved, like Randy Fine, I mean, he's tweeted bombs away like 10 times in the past 2 days.
There's even been the dead baby that time when he saw the photo. He's like, oh, I sleep well at night. And he's also the same guy that went with Ron DeSantis to Israel when they went and signed the speech laws against us here, saying that people are anti-Semitic. Unfortunately, this whole government, it's more like 89% of our government is for this war, and the American people are not for this war at all.
Yep.
They're all tied in maybe through AIPAC or whatever. They all have their handlers. Thomas Massey has told us many times, and shout out Thomas Massey for pushing out against us.
And AOC, I will say, she's the only Democrat against the war. Who would have thought AOC and Thomas Massey together?
Yeah.
Like, what?
Look at this, Trovas. I want to play this. So this is actually our last point. Is that what's really weird to me about this lying and this gaslighting is like I even wrote here to Steven. I said, Steven, I'm always available to come on again. I completely disagree with you here on so many points. Appreciate what you do and your love for this nation, but it is dividing what Trump's doing is dividing his base. He's not always been pro-war with Iran, and his DNI said the exact opposite recently. What was I responding to? Well, he said, you can take issue with Trump's stance on Iran's nuclear program. You can rightfully be concerned about the potential of another foreign entanglement, but what you can't in good faith do is suggest Trump's stance is some sort of an about face. He has been remarkably consistent on his view that Iran can under no condition come to possess a nuclear weapon, and moreover, his stance is not dividing his base, but it is interesting to see those making the claim that it is. Listen to what Steven Crowder had to say, and I don't know how people say stuff like this with a straight face on their shows. I don't get, this is what you're talking about. Like, how are you saying this?
Yeah.
Right? Like, dude, come on, man. You're a smart dude.
Yeah.
Here's the truth. Trump has always warned of the threat of a nuclear Iran. He's been remarkably consistent even when he had no ambitions to run for office. Here's a post, you know it as X, back then on Twitter in 2011. It was less raspy, so Iran's quest for nuclear weapons is a major threat to our nation's national security interests. We can't allow Iran to go nuclear. That's in 2011. Do you remember that famous escalator ride that everyone talks about, which changed the fabric of America going forward for good? That was President Trump, 2015. He rode down that escalator and onto the podium to deliver.
Saying that Iran can't achieve that. But he also said a lot of other things as well. He said the United States has spent $8 trillion fighting and policing in the Middle East. Thousands of our great soldiers have died or been badly wounded. Millions of people have died on the other side. Going into the Middle East is the worst decision ever made, okay? He said that more recently than that. So obviously his opinion changed. And also saying that we can't allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon does not mean that he agreed that we should do a regime change war in the country. And that's what the gaslighting, Steven, you're gaslighting us, brother. You know these tweets exist. You know there's other things out there, but you're intentionally trying to mislead your audience to satiate your whatever funders or whoever it is that's behind you. And and I've said, I don't know why you won't have me on. We've been friendly. I've been on your show a million times. I appreciate you. I think you're a talented man. And what your ex-wife did to you was fucking terrible. But also, hey, he said straight up, it's the worst decision ever made. is going boots on the ground inside the Middle East. So you're telling me that now going and going into the Middle East, you know, he was negotiating just a couple weeks ago and then till Israel attacked, okay? So to me, it's like, this is what our people do, and it pisses me off. It's like, now you're misleading your people
They
so
cherry
much.
pick all the time to like find some way to get us to, I guess, support Israel. But not only did he talk about intervention in the Middle East, he also at one point, and I used to play this clip on my show, but he supported the idea that 9/11 was an inside job. He was not in favor of this idea that it was, of course, the approved narrative at the time, of course, as a reason to go to war under the Bush presidency. So Trump has been somebody who's been very critical of foreign involvement, of interventionism. So it's disingenuous to say that we knew better. We've known all along that Trump is this massive Zionist. Like, sure, yes, he supported, you know, Zionism a little bit more than most of us would have been comfortable with along the way. But he's also said some pretty promising things. I mean, his whole philosophy was America first, and that implies, you know, not being an interventionist in and of itself.
Yeah, I mean, his only thing that I can really think of from the first term was moving the embassy to Jerusalem. And that was like a big deal because all the other presidents said that they were going to do it, but no one ever did. And I personally never understood the reason why. But, you know, that was the Zionist thing that he did. But I don't recall too much more from the 2016 term of him being Israel, Israel, Israel. Now, granted, I was much younger, so obviously I'm...
No, he was very pro-Israel.
But to the
His
degree...
Netanyahu, they were like buddies.
But to the degree that 2025 Trump
Well, he
is,
didn't take $200 million from them then.
I think that's the difference, right?
Yeah.
'Cause even he was still pro-Israel, but he also
he-
America first. Let's
He
go America.
criticized Marco Rubio, I think, from taking money from Miriam Adelson.
Yeah, he did.
And then he goes and takes money from Miriam Adelson.
Yeah,
So-
I think that's what it was. It's
Yeah.
the
I
first
didn't even know he
term.
did that.
Yeah.
I know he did. He did.
Really?
That was
criticize
one
him.
of his
Yeah.
major criticisms of Marco Rubio, and his, of course, retort. His whole thing was, "Oh, why I can't be bought? I can't be bought." Well, clearly you can.
Which
So,
is crazy.
Yeah.
Because that was the thing that I loved about him was
Exactly.
he has billions of dollars, which means, great, he can't be bought. But if money is the root of all evil, then you'll never get enough. You'll never be satiated.
It's absolutely nuts. I didn't even, you know, I didn't know that, but I'll say this. And the part, like someone in the chat's like, oh, he didn't, you know, Crowder's not being dishonest. Like Sheldon Adelson is looking to give big dollars to Rubio because he feels he can mold him into his perfect little puppet. I agree. That's so crazy. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Dude. So Trump is like, hey, by the way, when you take Adelson money, you become a puppet. Also, I just took Adelson money.
And became a puppet.
And became a puppet.
Well, why do you
same
think
exact
Rubio's on the cabinet now? He's
That's
Rubio's
crazy.
part of the team.
That's crazy. I'm just realizing this right now for the first time. You're telling me Zionists control people through money. Sorry.
I don't believe it.
I'm hearing this for the first time.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. To end on this note, I'd make this point directly. Yeah, money corrupts. And also, you know, people are saying, you know, oh, you're being too hard on Crowder. No, because Crowder then says, yeah, this is not dividing his base, even despite people making that claim. I'm one of those people who's claiming, Trump, you're dividing your base, you know? And it is, because I am his base. We are his base. And the majority of people I know it's not his whole base. I see people obviously that do support him. Because his base, the problem with this now is his base isn't MAGA. He's got the neocons supporting him. So when you mean his base is supporting him, what do you mean? MAGA or the neocons? And the truth is that the neocons are supporting him. Meghan McCain supports him now. And I think I saw one tweet. I don't know who said it, but one thing they said they could respect about neocons, like Meghan McCain, is Trump made fun of her dead dad, John McCain, for a lot of times. But because he'll go to war against Iran, she now puts her support behind him. They're so tied to interventionism. They're so tied to these wars for Israel that you can literally have mocked your dead dad. Like if somebody mocked my dead mom one time, whatever, you know, whatever.
Like an off-color joke.
Like, yeah, but no, just no, joke's fine, you know? But like, you know, someone's just constantly making fun of the fact about like my dead mom and trying to spit on her and, you know, whatever. I would be like, dude, you know what? I hate you. You know what I mean? See, look at this. Inject this straight into my vein. She's all happy now. Somebody please explain to me why Kooky Tucker Carlson that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. So she's now got her support behind him. That is some dedicated stuff. That's almost the equivalent of a man having sex with your wife and then he runs for president, and then you like start supporting him. You know what I mean?
Publicly,
It's like,
publicly. And
Yeah,
everyone
yeah,
knows
yeah.
that he had sex with
Imagine
Laura.
that's right. Yeah, exactly. That's crazy because he's destroying the legacy of your entire family. It's not just her dad. It's a legacy of a political, thing. So, so it's just sort of one of these problems to where it's like, dude, we are divided because anything Meghan McCain is a part of, I'm against it.
Mm-hmm.
And, I advertised Meghan McCain's book before, my old show. She paid me to advertise her book. She used to follow me, And I think I made one comment on the fact that she'd gained a lot of weight and then she unfollowed me. I was like, hey.
Well, you did see the top comment on that post was your blood type is Rocky Road.
Oh, shoot.
Garbage human.
Oh, yeah, this says garbage human. Anyway, all right. I end on that note.
No, that was the name.
To remind you guys, we are live here Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. We really appreciate it. We were having some technical difficulties yesterday. We got them fixed today, so we were a couple minutes late. We really do try to start on time. It is important that we are around here. We'll let you guys know if there's ever any issues in the future. I was in the air. It was a long thing. But anyway, two things to remind you guys. Number one, if you're watching on Rumble, like the video right now. Join our locals by hitting that red button. Join the locals. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything to join. It's really important that you do. If you're on YouTube, like the video, subscribe. Please, please, please like the video and subscribe. This is a brand new YouTube channel. We just hit 2,000 subscribers. It's been going for like 10 days, 12 days. We just got this. We're going to grow this slow and steady, but we're going to get it up there. Our first video that hit 10,000 views on there, it's great. We're really, really, really working on that. Plus, we did we had quite a few thousand viewers. I think between all platforms, we had like 3,000 or 4,000 live viewers, which is pretty good. The show's doing pretty well. I'm pretty happy about it. But if you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to post the chat. I'm posting a link to the new YouTube channel. Please, oh please, go ahead and click on that link on the Slightly Offensive. You see it, and go ahead and subscribe to that channel. Send it to your friends and family. Tell them to watch at night. We got a W's in the chat for Anna. Let's get W's in the chat. We got a few already. W's in the chat. Anna W's. We love it. And W's in the chat for Braeden as well. Appreciate it. All right, guys. If people want to find you and follow you, Anna, how can we support you?
Follow me at wrongthinkanna_.
On X?
Yeah, on X.
Let me look that up real fast so we can just show it. Wrongthink. Here we go. Check this out right here. Wrongthink Anna. You can find her there. Her thing is Wrongthink Anna. WRONGTHINKANNA. It's a _. Snowflake.
All right. You can find me at Snowflake_news on Instagram as well as X. Love for you to come check it out.
Check that out. There he is. Snowflake_news for the audio only. We are on podcast. You can download this audio only. The link's in the description. We got a lot of people listening now. We're getting like a couple thousand downloads a week, or it's pretty good. I'm actually really surprised where we're headed. I think this show is going to end up being really, really, really I think it's going to go places. I do. I'm like actually confident. I've launched a few shows. They worked. I think it's going to work, but it's because of you guys, because you guys are fucking cool. Snowflake_news, SNOWFLAKE_NEWS. And Braeden, how can they find and follow you?
Braeden Sorbo on any and all platforms, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, yada, yada, yada. Sorbo Studios for the book.
Check it out right there. Braeden Sorbo. He needs more followers. Let's get him some followers. Braeden Sorbo, BraedenSorbo. Appreciate it. You can follow me at Elijah Schaefer. I'm also there. It's pretty easy. And Mendoza, you can follow him. You can put him on. You can put stuff on the screen, but I don't know why you're echoing. Mike Mendoza, JPG. MikeMendoza JPG. Is it underscore after or something? I don't know. Nope, just Mike Mendoza JPG. Anyways, shout out to you guys. See you tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Don't forget this Friday and Saturday, Bohemian Grove. You can get the details. It's on my X. You can DM me directly. My DMs are open if you want details. Have a great rest of the week. Thank you to my guests today. Have a great rest of the week. May God bless the United States of America. I'm signing out.